I'm not with you. I'm with Israel.
You're muted.
Shut up, Jayme. Play your goddamn. We were going crazy with the sound bites. Guys, welcome to the show. It's TruthWire time. Truth time. I'm your host, Craig Pasta Jardula, and Fiorella Isabel will be along shortly. Of course, on the ones and twos, I'm going to thank Jayme CheeseSlice, who's holding it down and was letting me know that my microphone was muted when I was speaking into thin air and nothing was coming out. Guys, there's so much stuff going on. Really, I don't even know where to begin. We got a lot of things to cover. We're going to have a great guest on today. You're going to love to hear what she has to say, somebody from that region who understands what's going on. I think the more we talk about Iran, the more we humanize the people, the more we kind of get across the fact that these aren't just jihadists, poor jihadists who want to do nothing but kill Americans. I think the fact that so many Americans in the mainstream, so many of the everyday working Americans don't understand how life is outside our borders, don't understand that these people are just like us. They really are. They're just like us. They're just like us. The more we humanize that, the more we can show, the better it is. I mean, I think people are still using the fact that the Iran government is holding their people hostage. They want to oppress and suppress women's voices out there. And that's the reason why we should go to war. That's the reason why we should rescue them. There's a lot of noise out there. There was a debate between Derek Rose and Naomi Wolf. We're going to be going over today. We're going to be talking about the attacks in Lebanon. But like I said, the more we bring truth to light, the more I think we can shine a picture on this. Because I don't know about you, fam, but the Mockingbird media has gone right into place. They picked up their orders, their beats, their drums, and it's the same old stuff we saw with the Iraq war, right? They hate us for our freedoms. They want to kill all Americans. We need to get them before they kill us. Iran has never attacked the United States, but yet they find a way to justify what they did. And remember, this war started off, fam, with the bombing of 130-something odd little girls out there. We have no right to talk about anything. We have no high ground to hold anymore. We haven't had it for quite some time. But if that didn't shock you and make you open up your eyes, because at the end of the day, Donald Trump said he would live with the results. He was okay with it. That means he's still okay with killing women and children. And I think that's disgusting. Remember, we didn't just allow that to happen in Gaza. We funded it and we supplied the weapons for it. Fam, how you doing today?
I'm doing okay. Is there a reason why we have to talk about Naomi Wolf? Like, I mean, she's been like this for a long time. She was only good on COVID and everything else. I remember way back then, you didn't, I was even like, do we really have, like, a lot of her views are just really trashy. Like, I'm not fan of the debate for debating. I think Derek Bros did a good job, but like, I just don't think people should be debated on things that are now fact, because then it's just like you keep pressing this issue as if it's something to be debatable, like when it's not. And it's just like, okay, like
Yeah.
it's just a waste of time.
Yeah.
I don't get it.
Can I make a comment on that?
Yeah, of course.
I agree with the fact that sometimes providing oxygen to people who don't have a lot of knowledge or are going to just repeat CIA propaganda talking points might not be a good thing. But whether we like it or not, Naomi Wolf represents a lot of people's feelings out there. At least they're going by the same misinformation or propaganda out there to justify what's going on. So even though we saw what we saw yesterday, and believe you me, what I took out of that whole situation is that, I think we need to have a conversation about not only what the left does, but what the right does, right? When they can't delegitimize the conversation, the talking point, the argument, they go after the person, right? They delegitimize the person. And that's what she tried to do, right? If you don't meet these set of credentials, if you don't vote, if you don't know at least 3 or 4 Leonard Skinner songs, if you're not an American, right? You shouldn't have a say. You don't live in the United States. Who are you to say anything? You don't vote. You can't say anything. I think that's a tactic that's worthy of pointing out right now. That's really, we see it happening all over again. And it's not just her, right? I mean, Naomi Wolf was not the only conservative MAGA, Maha, right-wing person to fall over the weekend really hard. On the trajectory of quite some time, I think Lara Logan has also stepped in shit with Mel K, and we're going to explain that as well. But these are talking points, and people repeat this stuff, and they get a lot of information there from him. So I think that even though we in the media, and we spend a little bit more time paying attention to these issues, it's still important to take on how the argument is being traded in the mainstream out there. At least for me, it is. It might not be for you, right? And I get that. I think that when you and Vanessa do a show, when Steve Poitkin does a show, right? You're not on the white belt level, right? You probably have to do a set of work to get to that level of understanding what's going on when you and Vanessa have a conversation about what's going on. In other words, when my mom used to watch it, she'd say, Vanessa has some amazing things to say, but a lot of things go over my head, right? What Naomi Wolf represented yesterday with that argument with Derek Bros is what a lot of people in the mainstream think or believe or are listening to. So I think it was kind of good to see that those talking points taken on, and also the tactic of kind of trying to discredit the person because you can't discredit the argument. That's important things to point out right now. It is because we have come full circle. These parallels to what we saw in Iraq are back again, and there's going to be a lot of people coming home in body bags and a lot of men messed up. Not to mention the fact is that it's upsetting to me that the American people only start to react when American bodies come home. The very first act of this war, right, was killing all those schoolgirls. That to me is disgusting, and I'm sick and tired of the American people just kind of passing it by simply because they're Iranians or people from the Middle East or Muslims or, Arabic. The attack on Muslim, on Islam is also a thing too now that we see coming around. They want to justify war over there because it's Christianity versus Islam. It's our Christian Judaic principles that we need to fight for versus Islam, and that's come back. So I think it's important to point out a lot of these things that these people are talking about because they have big followings, and we need to push back against that. And I think if we do take it head on, fam, we are going to get people out there who are going to be like, you know what, those people have a point. Let me stray away from this, and we can hopefully push people away from the tribal thinking. I do believe there are people to be picked off there, and I think that's worthy of that conversation and that cause.
I mean, I don't agree. I mean, I just think it's a waste of time. I don't think these people are going to change their mind. Like, people watching it might, but like,
that's who I'm talking about.
We don't need to like change Naomi's mind. We're not going to convince her, or like, it's just kind of like, I feel like we're arguing about something that we shouldn't even be arguing about. The reality is the reality.
Go full screen on Fee. I got a cat here. I got to take care of 1 second.
I've been like, why should we dumb ourselves down continuously for people who are like just not gonna get it. Like there's a difference between having conversations and then kind of making an entertainment out of war in this situation. Like people tend to debate the Zionists a lot, which can be entertaining because they're dumb and they give the worst talking points, but at the same time, these are people's lives that we're talking about. And I think there's, Pasta's surrounded by a lot of right wingers, a lot of Americans who think like this, but I don't even think that thought process is as big as they make it out to be. I think these voices are just extremely loud because what I'm seeing is the majority of people being against this war, the majority of people saying, we don't want to get into another war. I'm not seeing that right-wing voice be so strong as he is, probably because I'm not around it, but also he's literally in the middle of it. And, I think that makes it seem so much more important. When you take yourself out of the United States, you start seeing the debates that are had there, the discussions, all of that as just complete like lunacy. It's almost like insulting to talk about this shit when there are people dying every single day for what we're doing. So that's kind of how it feels to me. And when you talk to people from the region who are experiencing this right now, they're like, what the hell are you talking about? Who cares what these people think? Like, this is what's going on right now on the ground. Let's show what's actually happening, because that is going to demolish a lot of these talking points when you have people from the ground. And that's why we're going to have our guest today who is in Iran come talk to us, because that's the kind of thing we need to focus on. Not people that are regurgitating the same talking points of 10, 20 years ago during the Iraq war. Like, we can say that, we can say our piece and not waste our time anymore. But like, people are seeing what's going on. I think these voices are just like really loud, and they're magnifying themselves with their little networks, but they're not the majority of people in the United States. The majority of people in the United States right now are worried. Non-political people in the United States are worried. They don't like what's going on. And I think we need to focus on that rather than the loudmouths that aren't going to change their mind, that have this hatred for these people cemented in themselves, and that will maybe only be affected when the bombs are dropped or when the gas prices soar over $10, which I guess we're close to now. So, that's why I think it's like, it just ignites something in me where I'm like, why do I need to waste my time talking to somebody like that?
Well, Pam, that's why I love you, and I get it, because you got a small tolerance for bullshit, right? I get that. You know what I'm saying? Like, I know, in fact, that if we were sitting in a room with a couple people, you'd probably get up and walk out a lot quicker than me when you hear just bullshit regurgitating out of people's mouths. I get that. You know what I'm saying? Where, I maybe have, and once again, this has led to why so many times that I've been wrong about things. Like, I could have saved myself time had I listened to Fam earlier, because those people weren't going to come around. But I have seen people on the periphery get affected and didn't change their minds from those discussions. So I do think it's worthy, but I do understand where you're coming from. And I get it. Like, this whole situation when we talk about Charlie Kirk or whatnot, it shouldn't be lionized. He shouldn't be lionized, right? But there are other aspects about what's going on, what happened, that we can talk about that might be beneficial to some people, right? Because I do believe, and this is something I was talking about with Keith McHenry, who's going to join the show on Friday. We're going to talk mostly about food, not bombs, and he's the founder of that. And, obviously, but, when we talk about the Charlie Kirk situation, a lot of people thought that was going to be their George Floyd moment, that was going to ignite people and get people in the street, but it kind of fizzled out. So there's kind of conversations there to be had. But I do agree with you, fam, and there's a lot of other people who, like, they won't let this shit go. There's a ton of people grifting off it, right? And I get it. Like, why are we lionizing these people or listening to these people who tend to get it wrong all the time? And they got it wrong when we got it right. But, I mean, fam, if you're going to ask people to be held up to our standards of getting it right versus getting it wrong, there's not many people out there. I'm going to pat ourselves on the back that have got this shit right a long time ago. I mean, 8 years ago, we did a video of Epstein and the Mossad family connections. And just recently, a couple months ago, we know for sure that Epstein was working for the Mossad. I was like, thanks, guys. What is it? Obvious day down on camp, stupid. So, I mean, it's hard to be held to our standards because we got so many things right all the time.
All right, let's talk about Lebanon before our guest gets here, because
I think this is important because people don't understand why Lebanon is being attacked. And I think if you could lay this out, because I think while shit's going on in Iran, they're like, hey, let's go over here and take some territory over there while they're looking over here.
So, yeah, well, a lot of people don't differentiate that Lebanon isn't Hezbollah, unfortunately for them. So, this is Marwa wrote a tweet because she's in Lebanon, right? And she said, if you can put that one up, the Lebanese president has chosen the path of violence against its own people. Does he not realize that in the end, a leader must reap what he sows? Below is President Aoun's initiative to disarm and enter direct negotiations with Israel. So the government of Lebanon wants to negotiate with Israel. The president stated, "We call upon the entire international community to assist us in supporting and implementing a new initiative based on the following principles: establishing a ceasefire, halting all Israeli attacks against Lebanon on land, air, and sea. B, rapidly providing the necessary logistical support to the Lebanese armed forces. C, the Lebanese forces would then immediately take control of the recent areas of tension, confiscate all weapons." And by the Lebanese forces, they don't mean Hezbollah. They mean the government Lebanese army. And so they would confiscate all the weapons, stockpiles, etc., and they would take everything from Hezbollah. And then D, simultaneously, Lebanon and Israel will begin direct negotiations under international sponsorship to implement the details of all the above points. So again, this is ridiculous because Israel wants all of Lebanon. Guys, they don't want a little bit of it. They don't want to negotiate. They want all of it. They want to control all of it. The Lebanese government has been looked on as kind of being treacherous, similarly to the Palestinian Authority, because they want to work with Israel, and you can't work with Israel. Israel's going to take everything. So the only thing that's been stopping Israel from taking everything is Hezbollah, right? And so for me, it's not even, it's a fact that Hezbollah has been the one that's been defending the entirety of Lebanon. So without them, you're just going to fall into being controlled by Israel.
So Hezbollah in Lebanon, for dummies, people can understand. They're not part of the national security forces there. It's not the government's security force. Hezbollah is its own separate entity that exists in Lebanon and has been the only factor to ever beat back Israel when they've come in there. So they don't necessarily take their orders from the Lebanese government. The Lebanese government is weak and it's split, whatnot, has a different forces. And the Lebanese government has now said, we'll pretty much kick Hezbollah out. We'll disarm them and do business directly with you. And people are like, what are you doing? Hezbollah has been the only force to push back Israel out of Lebanon. Why would you betray them? Kind of like, is that what's going on?
Yeah, I mean, there's different opinions because what the propaganda from the Lebanese government itself and from Israel tends to blame Hezbollah for the problems. So you'll have a sector of people in Lebanon who will say, oh, it's because Hezbollah wants to fight that there are problems. But the reality is Hezbollah fights because if they didn't, Lebanon would belong to Israel. It would basically be the occupied Palestinian territories. That's what it would be. That's what they want. They want to start with the South first. This is why they've entered and started attacking Beirut and Dayeh and these provinces, because of the fact that they know that they can get the Takfiris to also come in. They can get Israelis can get the Lebanese army on their side. And of course, the Israelis are coming in. But the thing is, Hezbollah is the only one that can take on Israel. They are the only ones. The Lebanese army cannot, even if they wanted to, which they don't, they can't take them on. So people ultimately know that without Hezbollah, okay, you're going to get a ceasefire, but you're going to be imprisoned by Israel, essentially under Zionist control. So just a couple more tweets here about this thing. We have the attacks that have been happening ongoing in Lebanon. So from Vanessa, Israel attempting an invasion of southern Lebanon from 15 points. Warplanes are bombing to create a belt of fire. God protect the resistance. So this was from her Telegram. And apart from that, there was also a couple of other reports, including that they were going to go after this Card Al Hassan Cooperative Bank. This is actually one of the most socialist things you can think of when it comes to Lebanon. They offer loans with zero interest to all Lebanese civilians. So, and this free banking is criminalized by Israel as providing funds to the resistance. So they bombed it, and basically this strike was 1 kilometer away from central Beirut. And I've been in Beirut. It's pretty packed. I mean, it's pretty how do you say this? It's pretty urban, right? You have a lot of people in a small space. And so when they bomb central Beirut, that's no small thing. That's, that's you're gonna hit and kill civilians, and they have. And so that's when the bank was actually bombed. Here it is. And again, this bank, you can go and get a loan for zero interest. So when you pay back, God, I don't know where you can get a loan for zero interest. I've never heard of this in the United States. You can get low interest or 6 months without interest and pay it back. But we're talking about a loan with no interest. For me, this is like, whoa, that's insane. And of course, Israel doesn't want that. They're the bankers. They're the, like, this is the truth. This is a conspiracy. And so they don't like this. And so they bombed it. I mean, this is just symbolic, but they're trying to get to Lebanon because once they get Lebanon, just like they got Syria, they can more easily attack Iran. This is why they've unleashed the ISIS forces in Iraq in an effort to surround Iran on all sides. And then, of course, make it so the United States and the rest of their forces can fully attack Iran. But the problem is Hezbollah, like we'll see in Iran, they're not going to give up. They don't stand down easily. They're not just going to say, okay, we give up. We're just going to hand over our weapons. That's just not going to happen. They're never going to hand in their weapons. No, it doesn't matter if you threaten their life. This is what people need to understand. They're not afraid to die. They are not afraid to die. When you're fighting somebody that's not afraid to die, when they believe in a higher purpose and a higher thing like martyrdom, you're not going to win the fight because you're looking at things from a pragmatic perspective, like an equation of if I do this, then I can get this. But that's it. You're not looking at it like from the way that they're looking at it.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, I mean, questions I have. Hezbollah inside Beirut, Lebanon. Are those like Lebanese citizens that just fight for Hezbollah? Or are they troops from Iran that go directly there? How is Hezbollah made up in Lebanon?
No, definitely not troops from Iran. They're their own force. That's like the Zionist talking point that's constantly used. Yeah. That Iran is directing Hezbollah, that Iran is directing Hamas, that Iran is in charge of everybody. It's insulting, I think, to a lot of these groups because they're autonomous, like they're their own thing. It's kind of like when you have an autonomous society living within a country, like in Nicaragua, for example, we have the autonomous zones. They have their own viewpoints, their own things going on, but they will work in coalition with other forces that they can agree with, and they all agree on taking down the Israeli Zionist entity because they see that it's causing the most destruction, and they see that it wants, the Abraham Accords, they want to continue their expansion towards Greater Israel. So that means it's an existential fight for them to the max. If they don't fight, they're gone, just like Syria was. And like Syria's been partitioned into just a bunch of Takfiri jihadists existing and killing a bunch of people. And you have Jelani's forces, and you have all of these factions. And now they're counting on the Kurds, right? They're counting on the Kurds to come in and work for them. But the Zionists don't understand that there's a lot of Kurds, and the Kurds aren't just going to fold also that easily. There's different factions, there's different interests. And so that's also not working out for them. But, the attacks on Lebanon have always happened in an effort to get to Iran, not saying that Hezbollah isn't its own force, but it's also a way to attack the entire resistance. as a whole. So we should be watching Lebanon, because that's another area where Israel plans on capturing the same way they captured Palestine.
So I understood that when people try to, and that is the argument, right? What I was trying to say, kind of lay it out there. People keep saying that, oh, Iran supported Hamas. And I'm like, well, that doesn't really make sense to me, because Hamas, more of a Sunni entity, right? And Iran, more of a Shia entity. Is Hezbollah a Shia entity, or is that just more of a nationalist like entity inside Lebanon or whatnot? I think that's confusing to some people too, because when you say that Iran supported Hamas and Hezbollah, that seems like hypocritical. It really does. It's like, wait a second, they're going to support Sunnis and Shia? So,
I mean, I think ultimately you'll see more Shia in Hezbollah, but the thing is, it's kind of like focusing on the wrong thing, because the majority of the resistance, I would say, are Shia, but and the Gulf states, you'll have the Sunni, but they'll be different. It's not necessarily the case like for everybody, and I think it's kind of focusing on the wrong thing, because the reality is, if you believe in the resistance and you believe that Israel is the enemy, right, that is imposing its will and dominating the region, then that's literally what matters. But the majority of the resistance, when it comes to Hezbollah, when it comes to Iran, is resistance, and most of it is Shia. But they're not antagonistic towards Sunnis in any way. I mean, there are people that were brought up in different ways, where it's not something that I think the West makes it like this very fractured thing. But in Lebanon in particular, you have Christians who support the resistance. This is what a lot of people don't even understand. There's like a what we would call them, they're Mennonites, but they're similar to Catholics essentially, and they live in Lebanon, and there's a huge population of that. And one of my friends is really well equipped to talk about this, because she is actually a Mennonite, and there's a lot of Christians being attacked in all of this. So for all the Christians who talk about Christianity and supporting Christians, there's a lot of Christians that are dying right now. A lot of Christians, Catholics, Christians, all sorts of Christian denominations and minorities that are dying because of Israel. So at that point, does it matter the specifics if you're all being attacked by the same Zionist entity that is basically saying everybody else is unworthy and we are the chosen ones? I don't think there's any point. In fact, if anything, that just shows that there is a unity. And Syria, by the way, before it went down, was one of the most diverse, not just ethnically, but religiously diverse areas in the region. Absolutely. People lived in peace, Christians next to Muslims, and even there were also Jews there as well. And then this is what I'm talking about. People have this idea that the Middle East is the area where people are always fighting each other based on religion, but that's not the case. That's how they've made the propaganda out to be, so you can dismiss it as an area where there's always conflict. They're always fighting. Do you know how many times I've heard that from everybody in the United States? Oh, that area, they're always fighting. They've been fighting for 1,000 millennia. They're always fighting each other. So that gives you the ability to dismiss it as just another fight. So, this... They've
been doing it for years, fam. I hate when they say that. It was wrong then. It's wrong now. Why does that make a difference if they've been doing it for years? Well, they should stop doing it. It's like, that's been going on for years. All right. That doesn't really make it right.
So our guest is going to be coming in soon. We can start on the next section unless you have anything.
Well, let's share the give, send, go, because it's been quiet for the last couple of days, guys. We had to take off Monday, had things going on. It's basically on me. I'm going to take the hit for that, but we're kind of cranking it back up, guys. Somebody was calling me today and was like, "Hey, man, I didn't even know you and Fee were doing shows regularly again." And I said, "Yeah, well, that's because the bell doesn't sound, it doesn't send out there. So we need your help out there, guys. You see that share button? That share button needs to get up equal to the give button. So it says 22 shares and 37 gives. Let's get that shares up there. If you can't give, share. That would help us out. I put the link in the chat, givesendgo.com/election integrity matters. There's a lot of stuff going on, guys, that we need to talk about out there. And by the way, I think today, fam, I had a tweet that had 620,000 views. And it was the tweet I said about 8 days ago. Iranian media is reporting that 800 troops were either killed or seriously injured. And the mainstream media in America is reporting 3. Well, guess what came out over the weekend and what's been coming out? More American deaths. They're hiding the number. They're suppressing it. We'll get to that later in the show. But once again, the Convo Couch, TruthWire is where we need to be mentally and giving you the information and the news. Had you listened to us a year and a half ago, or you listened to Alex Jones, who would have got more information? Right? I love to say that because some of these people were, they're so off, right? Media has not become media. And this is why we call a lot of these people out, because they're team sports players. That's the worst thing you can have inside media, whether it be independent, mainstream, or anything, is when people have a tribalist mentality. If you're going to go with a tribe, you're not going to get honest information out there. We don't fucking alter or wave away from our principles. We stay focused on what's going to happen. And whether it's the right or the left hate us for our opinion about what we see, truthfully, we'll take the lumps. And, once again, I told you guys, from what I heard, I'm like, this number is going to be like way off, guys. If you believe 5 or 6 people have been killed, then you're smoking some serious grass. And I'd like to get a hold of some of that because that's making you delusional. That's some good stuff. It's coming out there, fam. So, that's something we can talk about really quickly if you want before the guest comes on, or we can just do whatever.
Yeah, no, let's go to the section because the other one will be the longest one. So let's talk about Iran electing the new Ayatollah, the son of Khamenei, and the reality inside Iran with our guest who will be arriving shortly. So Iran did elect a new Ayatollah, but it's the son of Imam Khamenei. So Sayyid Mojtaba Khamenei, the third leader of Iran, he has a military background. He fought during the Iran-Iraq War. In 1986, he served on the front lines of that war at the age of 17 as a volunteer. He was also part of the Habib bin Mazir battalion of the 27th Mohammed Rasul Allah Division. He participated in several major military operations, including the Bayat ul-Muqaddas 2, 3, and 4, Al-Fajr 10, and Mersad, the final major battle of the war in 1988. He does not have assets abroad. The UK Daily Mail has been spreading this nonsense. So this is him. He looks exactly like his dad, just a younger version of him, which is literally unleashed a set of mockery from everybody in the world that Trump spent billions of dollars to literally just change, Ali Khamenei to a younger version, who is, by the way, pro-nuclear, meaning he's pro-Iran getting nukes. Because he understands what we all understand, that without nukes, Iran's going to be perpetually in danger, and I support that. Mojtaba Khamenei, here he is as there's his dad on the left, and the son is, on the right. And if you can pull up that picture, Jayme, showing him next to his dad, it's just right underneath the tweet that I shared. There, yeah. So they pretty much look very similar, guys. It's just kind of like you traded the older one for the younger one. The other point I want to make is that for a lot of people who think that this is like nepotism, there was a council of people that elected him. It wasn't something that just where Ali Khamenei just appointed his son. That's not what happened. In fact, he didn't recommend his son. He's made other recommendations. He didn't recommend his son. But others voted and elected him. And I think it was perfectly symbolic as to why that happened, right? But people are going to say a lot of things that aren't true. So that's precisely why I want to go over this section with our our guest
Yes,
coming up
yeah.
right now. And the other thing, Jayme, if you can go to the Al Jazeera English tweet, this is from the foreign minister who says Iran does not want to harm ordinary Americans who are overwhelmingly voted to end involvement in costly foreign wars. So Iran's always quite kind, even though the United States doesn't deserve it, including many Americans who don't really care about politics or don't care because these bombs aren't being dropped on the United States. They only care when there's oil prices or when American US soldiers are injured, as Pasta said earlier. And unfortunately, that's a mentality that it's shifted some, but very little. And it's precisely because we have no idea in the United States what it's like to live under these conditions. You can't even comprehend, because most people have never seen a bomb. They've never seen the destruction that it's unleashed. And if you even get a glimpse of that, it does something to you. And it's one thing to go somewhere and see it, and it's another thing to consistently live on that side of the world where the United States, the Epstein empire, and its assets are always dropping bombs and really getting away with it. And then they talk about international law, and a lot of the world talks about international law and the UN Charter and all this bullshit. And frankly, it's bullshit because nothing has been done. The moment they allowed a genocide to happen and continue, that's the moment that we should have said something and changed something, and we didn't. So that's essentially where we're at. So I'm going to go ahead and introduce our guest.
Please do.
Our guest is Setareh Sadeqi, and she is the co-host of Twice Tales podcast, Twice Told Tales podcast. And Setareh and we've had conversations before, but I'm very glad you're here because we tend to see a lot of Westerners talking about Iran and talking about their opinion of what's going on and their opinion of how things are turning out. And I always like to get people from the region itself. Last week we had Mohammed Marandi, but I'd like to have your take and as to where you are, and well, you can be as broad with that as you want, but how you view Iran's response, because a lot of people, I think, underestimated Iran and the people and the resistance and their response to the Israeli-US attacks. So welcome to the show.
And by the way, fam, please, it's Dr. Setareh Sadeqi. Please.
Yes.
We can't forget, right?
Hey, Setareh.
Can you hear us, Doctor?
I can hear you now. There is a little bit of
delay,
internet problem, I guess, but can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. Sorry, I didn't hear anything until now. So
okay.
If you have a question, you can just repeat it.
Yeah. Well, welcome, Dr. Setareh Sadeqi. We just wanted to ask you your take on how Iran's responded to this, because a lot of people underestimated Iran, and when the United States and Israel attacked, I think a lot of people expected Iran not to react the way they did, and now there's, I think, a lot of backtracking, a lot of moonwalking. Can you just tell us from your perspective, being in the region, of how that's been and where you see it?
Yeah, thank you for having me. For many years that we have had, on the one hand, the hyperbolic and hyper-real depiction of the imperialist power being the United States as being invincible and impossible to defeat, and any nation that wants to have a little bit of a welfare in peace and security needs to be an ally of the United States. And on the other hand, we have an Orientalist an imperialist narrative about the countries that fight imperialist powers, in this case Iran, as being weak, you know, unpredictable, savage, and just unable to stand for themselves. But especially after what we have seen unfold in Gaza, Palestine, and then Iran's response in several cases as a retaliation to the assassination of Iranian generals, Iranian diplomats in, you know, the Iranian embassy in Syria, and then in Lebanon, and then also on Iraqi soil, then and more recently on Iran. We're seeing that Iran has been just exposing the paper tiger and showing the world that it's possible for a nation to independently resist imperialist power and stand for itself. Iran, for so many years, have been in the entire world, led by the United States and the Zionist regime, tried to isolate Iran, to demonize an entire nation, and frame our resistance against their aggression as, you know, all sorts of things, including terrorism. But as I said, especially after the war, the world watched a live stream genocide in Gaza perpetrated by the Zionist regime and then funded and armed by the United States. They know the front that Iran is fighting against is just basically the front of evil. You have the two heads of states that are targeting Iran. One of them is a pedophile, long-term, you know, criminal, and the other one is a war criminal with a case of genocide. I mean, there is an arrest warrant for him, and he's been proven to be the perpetrator of a genocide in Palestine. And on the other hand, you have Iran that just wants to be independent. We have never started any attack on any other nation. We have only been resisting and engaging in war only in defending our sovereignty. The United States and the Zionist regime were wishfully thinking that by taking out our leader, the entire establishment would fall within a few days. But they do not understand. They have a lot of miscalculations there about the Iranian political system, but also population. We're still going on. They took out many of our military generals, but we're still defending ourselves with full force. I mean, no matter how much the Zionist regime tried to censor the impact that Iranian missiles have been making on the occupied territories, it's coming out, and people are seeing how Tel Aviv and other occupied territories are being impacted by the Iranian missiles. And let's also not forget that Iran has been defending itself and its sovereignty in an existential war all by itself. For the United States and the Zionist regime, this is a war of their choice. They wanted to engage in this war, and they have the support of, I mean, the Zionist regime has the support of the United States and all these family monarchies in the region that are hosting US bases I mean, in order to better understand the actual power of the Iranian military forces. It's good to remember that for an an American or a Zionist regime's missile to make an impact in Iran, there's only the Iranian defense system that tries to intercept and prevent that from happening. But on the other side, you have the US and the Zionist regime that have more than 20 different defense systems and interceptors that try to prevent Iranian missiles from making an impact in the occupied territories. We have heard about the THAAD system, the Iron Dome, and all sorts of defense systems hosted in all of these, despotic regimes in the region. And still, Iranian missiles hit their targets in the occupied territories. Yeah. And that is creating it's already changing the power balance in the region. And what will follow after just war is going to even create a huge shift in power balance, and not only in the region but in the entire world. And it's sending a very clear message to the world that if you're an independent nation that refuses to surrender, you can resist the imperialist power.
Dr. Sadeqi, thank you for joining the show. My name is Craig Pasta Jardula. I am Fiorella's partner. I've been doing this with her for almost 8 years. I haven't really had a chance to get to talk to you and ask you some questions, and I'm so happy you're here with us today. One of my sources in Iran, mainly in Tehran, thank God that person has got themselves outside of Tehran and keeps going back in, very fear of the bombing. We had talked about the fact, and I think this is something that is lost, right? Sometimes it's weaponized and it's manipulated. The fact that there are people who have different opinions in Iran, it's not just black or white. It's not just pro-government. There are people out there that probably watch a lot of Iran International, which is based out of a London channel, which seems to be wanting to return, at least the mentality leaning towards maybe the return of the Shah and his son. What percentage of the faction would you say out there that are pretty much that want that return to the Shah, that type of rule, versus that those who are now getting in the streets and being pro-government that are out there right now? Because we hear these mouthpieces, people like Patrick Bet David, who seems to be the #1 persano, which is a Persian gusano, that kind of makes these ridiculous claims that 81% of the people in Iran and Tehran want a change of government, when we see quite the opposite. What would you say those numbers are like in your personal opinion? And how do those two factions interact in Iran? Because they want us to believe that anybody who is anti-government was just killed in the streets. They don't have a voice. But from when I talk to people from Iran, we see diversity there. Can you give us shine a little light on that information over there?
Exactly. I mean, like any other society, the Iranian society is not a monolithic society. There is a diversity of opinions, and people standing on different, ends of the political spectrum have different ideas about, for example, how the country should be run, whether we should have certain policies or abandon them, etc. But one thing that we also observed after the 12-day war that happened in June, the war again by the Zionist regime and the US against Iran, was that people from all places on the political spectrum rallied behind the flag. So nationalism was, revived in a strong, full force and very strongly after the attacks. You see people inside and outside Iran coming, that they totally criticize the Iranian government, and in cases the entire establishment, because they want a different political system, but still they understand that this is not a war on the Islamic Republic, this is a war on Iran, the entirety of the country. And in terms of the popularity of the clown prince, I would call him, I don't know if you have seen this very amazing video of 2 Russian pranksters that interviewed him imposing as the advisor to German chancellor, and he has with a fake Hitler mustache, and the guy's name is Adolf, and he does not even understand what's going on, and he keeps on with the so this is the level of stupidity that we're dealing with. Even Trump himself had said at least a couple of times that this guy does not have any popularity in Iran, and if we are going to replace Karen's government, he's not an option. He does not enjoy enough support within the country in order to be replaced by the Islamic Republic. And of course, that rhetoric has also changed. So now the Zionist regime Trump and Netanyahu are not even talking about regime change anymore, because they have realized after killing thousands of people that it's just impossible. This is not going to happen. But there are also interviews because, as you know, ever since the war started and our leader was assassinated from Saturday, millions of people have been on the streets every single night. And you know, this is Ramadan, people have been fasting, and there is bombardment. It's still very cold in a lot of cities. You have images of people coming out on the streets in the snow and freezing temperatures and rain, only to support their country. It does not necessarily mean that everyone is like totally happy with the government. I don't think there is any nation in the entire world where the people are totally happy with their governments. That does not exist. So Iran is just one example. We have people who support the government, but they have grievances against certain policies. We have people who just want a totally different government. But when it comes to the sovereignty of their nation, they want to come out and support. You see people, like especially, for example, women, even without the headscarf, without hijab, that have fought for those rights on the streets and waving the Iranian flag and asking for demanding a strong response to the attacks, and also demanding revenge for their leader. And when they have been interviewed and when they're asked about their rights and what they feel about the government, some of them have even mentioned that they were part of the protest that happened in January, but now they're out because they want to support their government, because they can see that ordinary civilians are being killed. They can see in the rhetoric of Trump and Netanyahu that now this is, in their own words, about the destruction of an entire nation. They're seeing that how the Zionist regime in the US have been damaging centuries-old UNESCO heritage sites. This is not about the Islamic Republic. When you're damaging very beautiful cultural heritage in UNESCO sites, you're not attacking the Islamic Republic. When you're destroying hospitals, when you're killing 180 schoolgirls when they were like in session in their schools, it's not about the Islamic Republic. It's when you're taking out blocks of residential areas and apartments and just burying people under rubbles, it's not about the Islamic Republic, it's about Iran. Trump even was asked if he thinks the map of Iran would be the same after this war, and he said probably not. That's a big red line for people in Iran from all walks of life, or from any political thought. They're not going to allow the balkanization of the country. Yes, of course, we do have people who have fallen for the propaganda. I even see people posting on social media that initially they were happy with the strikes because they thought this is going to bring them democracy, or I don't know, freedom. But then they are saying, okay, I mean, this is not about democracy anymore. It's just about massacring civilians and destroying our infrastructure. How is destroying infrastructure going to help us have freedom? And a lot of people also feel that every time there are like social movements within the country, they're either hijacked by very violent elements, or, for example, you have the war or sanctions that make it difficult to carry on that social movement and continue with the demands that you have in the society. Despite that, we have fought, but at this point, a lot of people have realized that this is time to put aside the differences, forget about the demands that we have inside the country, be it financial, social, etc., and just try to keep the country together and protect the sovereignty of our country. Because if you don't have Iran as the integral map and a country that we have right now, then what is there to fight for? And people have seen what happened to Libya, to Iraq, to Syria, and I'm not a fan of those leaders. Like, for example, especially Saddam. Iranians have a terrible memory of Saddam. We believe he was a dictator. He was responsible for the massacre of a lot of Iranians. He tried to attack us with the support of the United States. But at the end of the day, it's no foreign country's business to tell us what is better for us, what form of government we should have. Iranians have the agency and the power to change what they want. We don't need help from outside. If anyone wants to help us, they can just push for lifting the sanctions and allowing us to, function the way we have been trying to function.
Doctor, I wanted to ask you something that I think a lot of US Americans have a hard time grasping, and that is the explanation of martyrdom, of not being afraid, or even if you are afraid to die, that the idea that what you're fighting for is much greater. The idea, I think it's alien to a lot of people in the West, and this is what I've found. They don't understand why or how Iran is fighting the way they are, despite the bombs, despite the assassination of a lot of the top military leadership, of the Ayatollah, of so many other resistance representatives that have been assassinated by the United States and Israel, despite being alone, right? Because the Gulf is obviously with Israel and the United States, that you have the entirety of NATO cooperating with the United States and Israel. And the resistance is with Iran, obviously, but besides all of that, the belief that Iran can win, the belief that they can defeat the Goliath that is the Epstein empire. Can you explain this idea of what it means to die from that, from like the Western explanation of it, and why so many people don't flinch when they're out in the streets and there is a bomb going off close to them, and they're willing to stay and fight for their country, because this is an alien concept for many people in the West?
It's true. I think martyrdom has been part of the ideology, even the Christian ideology. I mean, the fact that Christians believe Jesus was, people, his enemies tried to kill him because he wanted to stand for justice and truth. But it's never been, or at least in modern day Christianity, it's different from what we perceive in Islam, in the way that it has become a very important and integral part of our religious beliefs. In other words, we believe that whenever it's time to die, it will happen, and no one can prevent it or, delay it. It will happen at a time. So what is better than dying for a cause that you stand for? What is better than standing up for justice and then being martyred for that? I think for people to better understand where does this mentality or this ideology come from, or even to better understand the Iranian nation and Shias in general, they should read about the story of Imam Hussein and the Battle of Karbala. That sets a very a clear example of how martyrdom is perceived within the Shia ideology. And it's not only a religious ideology, but also a political ideology, with justice as being the core tenets of it, and justice being the most important thing that people or humanity can fight for. Even Imam Hussein is quoted as having said that even if you don't have religion, just be a free person, be a free human who does not want to accept humiliation. His in the battle, his motto was never to humiliation. He led an army, a very small army, against a huge army of enemies that wanted to, that were tyrannical and wanted to oppress the nation. And he said, I'm not going to accept this. We're not going to surrender. We're going to fight, even if it means that all of us are going to be killed by the oppressive enemy, because what will remain as the legacy is that justice is the most important notion and the most important tenet. It's even higher and more noble than humans' lives. So you will give your life in order for justice to be established. And this is what you can see in the Iranian political ideology. And Iranians have always taken pride in the martyrs that they have offered for the revolution, for protecting the sovereignty of their country. As you said, there are videos of people on the streets, millions every night, and they're chanting slogans and in favor of the Islamic Republic of Iran, or asking revenge for their assassinated or martyred leader. And then in the background, you see bombs going on, explosions going on, and people are not moving. Like, they don't want to run away. They keep chanting, and sometimes the chant changes into "martyrdom is our pride" or "as our honor," which is a reminder that you cannot scare us by saying that you're going to kill us, because we don't think you have any power. All the power is at God's hand, and he's the one who decides, and we're never going to accept humiliation. We're going to fight, and there are two outcomes of the fight. We either win the battle, and we will achieve triumph, or we're going to be martyred. For us, both of them are considered victories. So there is no way you can defeat us. We are always going to be victorious, no matter what happens, because as long as you stand for justice and for your values and morals, you are winning.
One of my sources inside Iran said that the bombing that's taking place, they're hitting a lot of hospitals and police stations. I was kind of, I don't know if I was really surprised that we obviously seen the first attack, the women's, the children's, the girls' school, just with the Tomahawk missile, and hearing Donald Trump say he'll accept the results, whatever they are, kind of gross. But the fact that they continue to hit hospitals, when I asked my source, I said, why are they doing it? He goes, because that's what they do. And when I asked him why they were hitting the police stations, he goes, because they want instability. They're hoping that the Kurds come on in. They bomb the police departments. There's instability there. The people that they kind of signaled last time to get in the streets, they're little puppets. They hope that happens again. But that just hasn't been the case, because everybody's getting in the streets for the opposite reasons, to stand by their government and whatnot. Have you seen the fact that they've been bombing hospitals within Tehran and police departments, and why do you think they're doing that?
Yes, I mean, even the World Health Organization has confirmed that at least 18 health centers and hospitals have been targeted in Tehran by the Israeli regime. But in order to answer why, that's exactly what Zionism is about. They did the same thing in Gaza and Palestine. And it's always about, actually, they started attacking hospitals and, as you said, also schools. For the Iran International, which we in Iran call Israel International because it's totally Hezbollah propaganda against Iran, was justifying, was trying to normalize these attacks on schools and hospitals by making totally fake claims that, the same thing that Israel used to say, that Hamas leaders are hiding in hospitals. What does that justify an attack? Or like military equipment is being moved into schools, and there were even AI created images of a huge tank in a school, which was totally fake, and it did not even exist. And they were trying to justify attacks that were coming. And a lot of people were warning that this means that they're going to target hospitals. They exactly wanted chaos. They wanted to start attacking by taking out hospitals and making them out of function, so that when there are people who are wounded and injured during the attacks, there are not enough hospitals to respond and take care of the ones that have been injured. They also started attacking police stations and security stations because they exactly wanted to create chaos in the country. And I have Kurdish friends. I have Kurdish and a Kurdish aunt. I have Kurdish colleagues, and a lot of Kurds, they consider themselves part of Iran and they don't want to be separated. But we do have this fraction of Kurdish separatist terrorists that have been armed by Israel, and in Iraqi Kurdistan, they're trained by Mossad. They have close ties with the United States and Mossad, and they have been trying to. The U.S. has been trying to push them into the country and create chaos. We also have other terrorist organizations that are supported by the West, and in different occasions they have been armed. I mean, even during the Women Life Freedom protests, John Bolton, in an interview with BBC Persian, bragged about having managed to deliver arms to protesters, which basically meant these terrorist organizations inside the country. There are numerous terrorist organizations that the West has tried to arm and, provoke against Iran. So far, they haven't been successful, but they are creating chaos at the border. Iran has been able to push them back. There were attacks. I mean, within the first days, they were attacking the Iranian Kurdistan regions and Andaj and other places in order to, they assassinated or they massacred more than 20 security guards at the border because the purpose was to allow terrorists to storm the country and create even more chaos. That has always been the plan. This is exactly what Israel and Zionism is about. It's about creating chaos, perpetual chaos in the region, so it can continue with its with the settler colonial project that has been created in that region to exploit resources, to create instability, and to get the region against, like the different nations in the region against each other, so that they can live in peace. But it has become very difficult for them to carry on with their objectives.
Yeah. Well, my last question for you, so we don't keep you here all night. I just wanted to get your opinion on the complications that have occurred since Iran's been attacking the military bases in basically all of the satellite Gulf regions that are participating with the United States, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, etc. And I want to know how you think that's going to affect the economy, as well as the Strait of Hormuz closing and no ships being allowed except certain ones that Iran designates. How do you see this affecting the entire economy? Because Iran has said, both the IRGC and several of the leadership have said Iran is not backing down. They're not going to negotiate with a ceasefire, because the last time they did this, they were attacked and bombed. So they're not going to do this again. They seem to have learned from the 12-day war. How do you see all of that coming to, I guess, a peak tipping point in terms of the global economy then, if this continues longer than they expected?
Well, I think the impact that those policies have had on energy prices, and also on just basically how these like the Strait of Hormuz has been operating, is becoming clear. We'll need a few more days, maybe a couple of weeks, in order to understand how severe this impact has been on the global economy. But Iran has made it clear that this time they're going to carry on until their demands are met, and their demands includes the lifting of all the sanctions, but also of the US to withdraw from all its bases from the region. And let's not forget that there are, I think, for the Zionist regime, the population there are settlers that are coming from different countries, and they do not belong to that region. And they have, a lot of them have been promised a better life, and that's why they are there. So once Iran starts attacking and making impacts in Tel Aviv and other occupied territories, a lot of these settlers start fleeing and wanting to leave the settlements, because this is not what they have been promised for, and because they do not feel they belong to that land. On the other hand, you have Iranians. There are even Iranians who are trying to come back to Iran through the land borders, from other countries, because they want to be here, because this is where they belong to. So in that case, Iran has the upper hand, because we're, unlike the settler colonial project in Palestine, we belong to here. We don't want to leave, and we're going to resist until our demands are met. But also for the family monarchies in the region, we're already seeing that a lot of people or a lot of businesses have become skeptical of continuing business in, for example, Dubai or UAE or in other parts of the Persian Gulf states, because as soon as the US uses those bases in the region to target Iran, now Iran is going to respond very precisely, but also very strongly, and it's going to have an impact on the businesses, but also and the security of these states for those people who want to do business there. Again, for example, UAE, less than 20% of the residents are UAE citizens. So the vast majority of the population there are not from there. So once there is no business, once they feel insecure, there's like no guarantee that they can carry on their businesses, they're going to leave those regions. So this is time for those regimes in the Persian Gulf to decide whether they want to become part of the greater Israel, as the final plan is, or they want to stand for themselves and reject being exploited by the United States. Because as we all know, and Henry Kissinger has also said it, that it's dangerous to be the US enemy, but it's lethal to be a US friend. And the US has already abandoned its so-called allies, which are basically slaves of the United States in the region. The US has done nothing to protect them against, for example, Iran targeting the bases, and they have come under attack. We saw, for example, the Israeli regime targeting and killing Hamas leaders while they were trying to negotiate in Qatar, and Qatar came under attack, and the US did nothing to protect Qatar. And that's what negotiations are to these two regimes, one of them led by a pedophile criminal, and the other one by a war criminal that has a genocide case going on and under arrest warrant. So right. I think it has become very clear to the people of the region also, because you're seeing that the people are against those family monarchies and they are revolting, like in Bahrain especially. Saudi Arabia had to send troops in order to suppress the uprising in Bahrain, because the people of Bahrain don't want to be slaves to the United States. The people of Iraq don't want to. The people in the region don't want to be slaves to the United States anymore. They have seen the example of Iran, and they want to follow that example. They want to be independent nations that stand for themselves and can protect their sovereignty.
Dr. Sadeqi, thank you so much. We'll get you out of here. This is the final question. And let me just say this much, Doctor, that there's a lot of people out there that would say, well, a lot of this stuff about Donald Trump being a pedophile isn't exactly proof, right? We don't have 100% proof. But what we do know is that he's covered for the pedophiles one way or the other. You can't avoid that. Exactly. You mentioned the demands, Doctor. What exactly are those demands? Because there's a little murkiness about what exactly they are. We hear stuff like the United States has to pull back, make sure there's no more bases in the Gulf states, in the Persian Gulf, whatnot. There has to be a pullback of land from Israel. What exactly are those demands? And the second part of that question, is there any possibility that if Iran beats back Israel and the United States right now, that they can make some demands to throw out some type of life support or life raft to Gaza? I mean, we've been saying this whole time, like, this is just going to end. They're going to be extinct, the people of Gaza. Is there something in the works with the demands, since Iran is winning this war, that they would also say, we need some demands to be met on what happens to the people of Gaza?
Well, you probably have seen a list of demands so far made, but I think the final demands that Iran will make will depend on when the United States will actually ask for, sort of negotiations, where this time, some sort of negotiations will eventually happen, but this time Iran is the one that is going to decide what should come out of the negotiations and will have the upper hand. Otherwise, it's not going to happen. So far, the demands have been that that sanctions on Iran will be lifted, and that the US will withdraw from the bases in the region. There haven't been clearly anything about Palestine and Gaza at this point, but I think the Zionist regime like the the case of the Zionist regime as a settler colonial project and as a hostile regime that has been, ethnic cleansing Palestinians, attacking Lebanese, Iranians, and other people, will be part of the demands that Iran will make. I think weakening the Zionist regime is Iran's way of protecting Palestinians and protecting Lebanese and protecting Iranians against this genocidal entity. And we're seeing what's happening. I mean, Israel has tried to censor the images coming from Tel Aviv and other places, but we're seeing that despite all the 20-something defense systems that exist and have been trying to intercept Iranians' missiles, they're making their impacts, and the situation there is not in favor of the settlers.
Well, Dr. Setareh, thank you so much for sharing your knowledge. That was a lot, I think, of very good knowledge for a lot of people to hear from somebody there. And we appreciate you taking the time. We hope you stay safe. And I will put your Twitter right now. I'll share that. Let's see where it is right here. Let's share that. This is where you can find Setareh on Twitter. Very good account to follow right now to get the latest on Iran. But is there anywhere else where we can find you?
I think that's basically the most important place where I put, where I post about Iran. That's my public account. Yes.
All right. Thank you very much.
Doctor.
And we'll hope to see you next time as well.
Thank you.
Be safe.
Thank you for this conversation. Thanks. I will try to.
Please. Thank you so much. Awesome. Fam, great guest. Great guest. And I know that she did mention that. I don't want to be redundant when I was asking the same question. I just want to kind of lay it out because there are some lines of confusion as far as like what Iran's demands are exactly. And I just wanted to know if there was anything tied to Gaza in their demands, because I've seen longer lists and shorter lists. And, obviously I think they're going to settle somewhere in between. But it's just, it's interesting right now at this point because it's Iran that's making the demands right now, not the United States.
Yeah, and I'd have a hard time thinking that there wouldn't be something for Gaza. The thing is, I think Iran understands, and I think the resistance understands that there's not going to be peace until Israel is eliminated fully. Until Israel is not in the position that it is right now, and that seems like almost an impossible thing the way you look at how Israel is supported. So I think that they're gonna, even if they win this battle of this war, there's a lot of work that needs to happen for Israel to fall, because the United States keeps it afloat. And that's why I don't agree with the people that said that it's Israel in control, because the United States continuously keeps Israel afloat. The United States is the one that bombed that school. The United States is the one that continues to give Israel billions of dollars and weapons and continues to support it by sanctioning countries that target Israel. Yeah. So it's not like if Netanyahu dies tomorrow, this will be resolved. That's not, it. There's a lot more to it than that. So
it's so funny you say that, because our source in Iran is one of the persons who look at as United States imperialism as the bigger problem than Israel, right? And at the very least, he wasn't happy that they were getting bombed by United States, but they were happy that they showed their cards and like, okay, now we can get this. Now we know this is between the United States and Iran. Israel wasn't a factor when Mossadegh was removed. It was the United States and Great Britain. So let's not play games here, right? It's all about the United States, Western Empire. I mean, obviously, I think these two entities walk hand in hand, brother, big brother, little brother, whatever you want to call them. They march to the beat of the same, the tune of the same beat, or whatever you want to say. I don't think either one could be avoided. And I think you're right. I think if you were to remove Netanyahu, if Netanyahu was killed the other day, let's say by an Iranian drone or missile that hit there, it wouldn't be over, because there are people who have the Zionist mentality in line waiting to take his place that would go along with the same type of practices that the Netanyahu government does. So it's not Netanyahu's the problem. It's Zionism that's the problem, tied to Western and United States imperialism, period.
Period.
Hashtag. That's it. Guys, we got a Give, Send, Go out there. And if you want to help us out, you want to see more great interviews like people from Dr. Setareh Sadeqi, help us on out. Go ahead and donate over here, or at the very least, share. Did you refresh that there, handsome? We got 22 people. Why aren't we have... Oh, there it is. This site cannot be reached. We need more people to share us out there. So if you haven't donated and you can't donate, we understand. A share will help us out. So please do that. Share it up there. And at the end of the show, we will read the names of the people who have donated if we can. Right now, we're at 1922. That was a good year. We have 22 shares. Let's get that 22 shares up to 30 shares. And let's get that give up to 40. Let's get 40 and 30 by the time the show is over. We still got some good stuff to talk about on today's show. I'm here with Jayme CheeseSlice on the ones and twos, our engineer, producer, cool ass guy. Of course, I am Craig Pasta Dardula, and my co-host Fiorella Isabel. We're talking mainly about what's going on in Iran, and we had a great guest. So if you haven't seen it, go back and watch it. Dr. Setareh Sadeqi, awesome. Fam, what are we talking about next?
So we're going to talk about the underestimation from Trump and the Epstein empire, right? Because we've seen the talk about oil prices soaring, many more US dead soldiers than they're admitting to. And this is just the fact that Iran isn't backing down. Iran will not back down. Iran is going to continue this fight. And you heard from Dr. Setareh Sadeqi as to why that is. And I think that was one of the best explanations I have seen, that I think a lot of people need to pay attention to, because for them, they are not afraid to go down fighting for this. So they're not going to stop. Yeah.
Fam, what if I were to say to you, that's not an underestimation by the United States. It's not an underestimation from Israel, that they are doing this because they plan on using a nuke.
Well, I think they do plan on using a nuke, regardless, but I do think that they did underestimate them. I do think that they thought this would be done a lot easier and quicker than it was, and it wasn't, because they didn't see Iran respond like this before. They've seen Iran be very restrained before, and I think they expected to have the opposition have more weight, and that didn't happen. And the problem with that is it's good for Iran. It really shows that they're a lot stronger than people thought. But the problem with that is, as I outlined too with Vanessa the last time we spoke, is that we think that the United States is going to try to resort to a false flag and then some sort of nuclear weapons. And I think more than the United States, Israel is very keen on doing that as well. So combined, of course, these two, I wouldn't put it past them. However, the only thing that saves Iran from this potential is the Strait of Hormuz and their impact on the entire economy. It's not saying that they wouldn't do it. It's saying that it would be targeted nuclear strikes. And I think they would resort to that. So
something to be careful about, something to think about, because that's why I think they've gone into this head first, knowing that this would happen. And remember, you got $1 trillion Pentagon budget, which, by the way, Congress is going behind the back of the American people, not making an announcement to give them more, right? The Pentagon more money. I heard it was like something like $50 billion more money to go ahead and wage these wars. And if all those bases are bombed and knocked down, well, you got to build it up again. More tax dollars go to the Pentagon instead of things here at home like roads, schools, hospitals, a working economy. Nope, the wartime economy is going, but we're getting left out in the cold. So I think we have to pay close attention to that, because, like you said, targeted nuke. It's ridiculous. They shouldn't be able to use this. And I wish there was more of an outcry from people in the United States right now. They're sleepwalking into this. Because once again, we're not affected yet. And when we get affected for gas prices, that's just so, once again, it's such a weak, lack of compassion point of view to have. People are dying over there. A tomahawk killed a bunch of girls in a school, and you're only going to complain when your gas prices go up. This is your tax dollars that are being spent to wage these wars. Speak the fuck up. Stop justifying it. There's no justification for it. No matter how many CIA or propaganda lies they tell you about what Iran is, state sponsor of terror, yada, yada, yada. This is all not true. Iran has never attacked us, the United States. We've removed their government back in the days, put a puppet in. We've been continuing to bomb them for quite some times. It's a lie. There's a wartime economy with neocons over there. When Pete Hegseth tells you, ladies and gentlemen, he's a recovering neocon, he's full of shit. He's the neocon's neocon, for crying out loud.
So, Saeed Abbas Argachi, the foreign minister, posted two days ago, 9 days into Operation Epic Mistake is what he's calling it. 9 days into Operation Epic Mistake, oil prices have doubled while commodities are skyrocketing. We know the U.S. is plotting against our oil and nuclear sites in hopes of containing huge inflationary shock. Iran is fully prepared, and we too have many surprises in store. So you can see this chart as to the rise of the price of oil and natural gas and gasoline, etc. And this isn't going to bode well for people. We're already seeing prices of like $8 per gallon in California, which California was always expensive, but that's going up there. And the other thing that he's been pointing out, apart from the oil prices, is this lie that's been perpetuated time and time again by the United States, Israel, and their propaganda, that Iran was planning on attacking the U.S. or U.S. forces preemptively, right? Because the only people that have unleashed preemptive strikes have been the United States and Israel, and there's no such thing, essentially, really. And he says the sole purpose of that lie is to justify Operation Epic Mistake. I love how they name it. A misadventure engineered by Israel and paid for by ordinary Americans. So, he's just telling people, like, straight up, like, you're being lied to. You're being lied to.
Absolutely, fam.
War
propaganda gonna propagandize.
One of my favorite people, Cynthia McKinney, is in the United States right now, and she's been talking about how bad the United States is doing, how bad it's going. I don't know. You should go see her. She's in Atlanta somewhere. But yeah. But she said, thanks to Interbellum News, breaking, Iranian strike destroys Halliburton facilities in Basra. This is huge, by the way. Offices and warehouses belonging to the U.S. oil services company Halliburton in Basra, Iraq, were reportedly destroyed in an Iranian strike. The attack triggered large fires inside a facility housing foreign oil company infrastructure in Iran's main oil-producing region. Iraq's main oil-producing region. No immediate reports of casualties have been confirmed. Basra hosts key oil infrastructure and numerous foreign energy contractors, making it a strategic hub for Iraq's energy sector. So, again, the oil thing is huge, right? Along with the Strait of Hormuz, all of that is going to have an effect on the economy. It already is. And I think we're trying to make maneuvers to try to subvert that, but that's only going to last so long. And, on top of that, you have the issue with the European Union now imposing sanctions on Iran instead of any sanctions on, what Israel has done or the United States has done. Of course, they're never going to do that, okay? But it just shows you, right? They attacked Iran. They did all of this. And Iran is the one that's getting punished, which is absolute lunacy. Now, this is what Setareh was talking about, guys. This is a very powerful video. This was sent to me by my friends from Iran. There's a lot of people in Iran right now that are trying to get the word out as to what's actually happening on the ground. And this video was sent to me from friends in Iran. If you can just bring up the video, Jayme, these people, I'll read it while you play the video. So they said last night when people were praying in the street and a bomb hit nearby, but they didn't move a bit. This is what Setareh was talking about. And I said, does the Epstein empire think they can easily defeat people who aren't afraid of death? The more they attack, the more martyrs and resistance they create. So when you understand that explanation from Dr. Setareh, how they can just stay there. I mean, a normal reaction would be to see a bomb and
run.
be like, oh, I'm getting the hell out of here. The next one's going to come way closer. But they're like, no, we're gonna stay here. We're gonna support our government. We're gonna demand justice for our leader, Ali Khamenei. We're gonna demand justice for our people in Iran. You know, martyrdom is dignified, or so honorable. So we can't compete with that, because the majority of people would just naturally run away. How do you compete with a different mindset like that, where they're willing to go down for this idea of justice? We can't compete with that, guys. They're not going to give in. I'm telling you right now, they're going to go down trying, right? And this is extremely. We don't have to play the video because it's Jayme. It's not captioned, but I'll just read this. The IRGC advisor, Brigadier General Sardar Ibrahim Jabari, he said, we are prepared for 10 years of war with the United States, at least 10 years. 10 years. Can we last 10 years of this war? I don't even think we can last 10 months. I mean, we can drag it out like we did with Afghanistan, but they're prepared for, they have been preparing for years for this, like for 30 years, okay? They've been preparing for this. They knew this was coming, that it was only a matter of time. So again, how can we compete with that further? How can we send more American people to go die in another war, especially when we know what we know now? When we know that they lied about the war in Iraq, when we know that they lied about to try to get us to go to the war in Afghanistan, when we know they've been lying about every single war, like the Russia-Ukraine war, when we know that they've been lying about what happened in Gaza, how can we continue to be duped? I think a lot of people are not. This is not sticking as well as it did before. And there's a video I will show later to highlight that, fam. But I'm asking you, like, how, do you think people are gonna just go along? Because I honestly don't think people are going along as easily. I just think we haven't seen it yet. It hasn't hit the shit fan yet.
Well, it hasn't hit the shit fan. It's going to
there.
start to. As American soldiers start coming home, unfortunately, that's what it really takes. That's when things kind of turn, and they've been suppressing those numbers, and we're going to show a lot of those numbers are starting to come out right now. So I think, unfortunately, until it affects them directly, fam, they'll go with the confirmation bias, right? The anti-Islam kind of mentality. That justifies a lot of craziness that can be done in the name of Jesus Christ. It's nuts, because it's the opposite of what being a real Christian means. But yes, I mean, they've been propagandized to think that Islam and communism and wokeism are some of the biggest problems. So you have a socialist Islamic regime, as they like to use, Mohammed Morandi pointed out, they'll justify it, right? But until it hits them financially, they won't do anything. So I think Iran was prepared for this. That's why shutting down the Strait of Hormuz was very important, to let you know, okay, well, you're going to suffer. You're going to suffer at the pump. You're going to suffer financially. If we can't eat, if we can't live in peace, then you can't either. And yes, though, I do feel that when we do these shows, when we talk about these things, we bring this information, they see it out there. There's a lot of people on the periphery that were kind of sitting there well, what's really going on? How can we really trust our government? They lie to us all the time. They're lying again. Fuck you. We're not falling for it. So I do believe there is a silent majority that's saying enough is enough. They might be consumed with trying to put food on the table, pay rent, pay bills, but they're out there and they're starting to speak up. And I'm glad to see more and more of them out there. That's why I think pushing against these tribalists in the media, because they're not really in the media. They're just tribalists out there pushing their confirmation bias for their team. It's good to push back against them, because I think more everyday people are seeing this. We've got nothing. We've been pushed out. There is no middle class. Our generation can't buy houses. Are we going to continue to listen to these people who take trillions of our tax dollars and use it to go bomb women and children in a place that's far away from us? We have to stop this. And the only way it stops is when we speak up.
Exactly. Pam, I want to share something that it's the next one, Jayme, but I'll actually share it this time. I want to share something that I find interesting. So Ali Larijani, okay, he shared the same message in 4 languages, in Mandarin, French, Arabic, and Russian. And I'll read to you what that message is. It says the Strait of Hormuz, either it becomes a strait of relief for all, or it transforms into a strait of strangulation for those dreaming of wars. I want to ask you, fam, why do you think he chose those 4 languages? Mandarin, French, Arabic, and Russian.
Okay. Well, I think the Russian and the Chinese were chosen because this is also to an essential war to have economic warfare with these countries. Like, in other words, going after Iran, I think a big part of if Donald Trump is allowed to make decisions to say yes or no, I mean, obviously he's being pushed towards it, knowing that China has a trade deal with Iran, the Belt and Road Initiative, and so does, Russia, their relationship with Iran, that it was a war against them too as well. So putting that out there for those 2 other languages. Now, the French, I do not understand exactly. I don't know if it has something to do with Lebanon, if there's a lot of French-speaking people in Lebanon, or it's the fact that the French, like most of the Europeans, are really getting asked out on this whole situation. They're going to suffer more economically than anybody. That's the Europeans because of the close down of the Strait of Hormuz. So I don't know if that was the reason why he chose that language. And obviously in English, he's talking to he wants to wake people up to what's really going on and not just go along with their propaganda. That is my guess. Final answer.
So he did, so yeah, he shared it in English as well, but, it's interesting because I think he's sharing it to the Americans. He's sharing it to the French in terms of the French have sent out their, naval vessels. They're sending groups. So I think that's part of it. I also think, that's the main part of it. But the Chinese and the Russians, I think it's also a message to say it's not just going to be like we're just going to allow you in if you keep working with Israel, and it's very subtle because Iran knows. I mean, they're very formal when they say, yes, we have our allies. They're never going to speak ill of Russia or China. However, they know, and trust me, they know that China still trades with Israel, that Russia has a relationship with Israel, that this is still a thing, that Russia and China are often sent, especially Russia, to try to act as a mediator and get them to talk to the Gulf and work something out. They have been asked by the United States and Israel to create the conditions for Iran to accept a ceasefire, for Iran to back down, for the war to end. So I find it very interesting that they said that, right? But they also know that there are people within, because again, these governments aren't monolithic, that really do support Iran and what they're doing, that in both China and Russia. I mean, China has provided the satellites, but Russia time and time again throughout history has actually faltered when it comes to Iran. So it's an interesting dynamic here. I think what we're seeing is either you understand that Israel basically has to go down, or there's not going to be peace, because really they know that there can't be peace as long as Israel gets to have its say. And with Israel is the United States. They consider it the great Satan and little Satan, right? So I don't really see why this would be sent in all the messages when we all have the translation ability. This is a direct message, and Iranians are very good at sending certain messages a certain way and of doing a certain propaganda. If they were to actually do propaganda, they would be really good at it. But it's quite telling to me, and I don't know. It's just a lot of my analysis, but there's more to be seen on that, I think.
Agree. Interesting.
Pasta.
Interesting. Yeah. No, what's the next tweet? What are we up to now?
It's yours.
All right, let's get into it as far as the death toll is concerned, right? So this is what I wrote about. What was that? March 3rd. So today is March 11th, 8 days ago, fam. Breaking, I just spoke with one of my sources in Iran. He told me that Iranian media has reported close to 800 U.S. personnel as either seriously wounded or killed. We were getting reports at the time that 3 U.S. soldiers have been killed. The numbers are far apart, but it seems like we will be in a propaganda war moving forward. Now, I didn't take a position on this. I said this is what Iran is saying. But I think I was also making the hint that I was also kind of saying, like, come on, guys. You know this is full of shit. They've been hitting bases left and right. We see the videos. There's no way that just 3 personnel have been killed. Moving on to the next tweet and the next numbers from antiwar.com, I believe it was. Exclusive, as many as 150 U.S. troops were wounded in war, so far in Iran war, sources say. And if you can scroll up a little bit, we'll just read this. This was written on March 10th. As many as 150 U.S. troops have been wounded in the 10-day-old war with Iran. 2 people familiar with the matter told Reuters on Tuesday. The casualty figure has not been previously reported. Prior to Reuters' publication of the figure, the Pentagon has only disclosed that 8 U.S. personnel have seriously been injured. In a statement after Reuters published its report, the Pentagon estimated the figure to be approximately 140 wounded and said the vast majority of them were minor. They're trying to downplay what's going on. Since the start of the Operation Epic Fury, approximately 140 U.S. service members have been wounded over 10 days of sustained attacks, said Chief Pentagon spokesperson Sean Parnell. He said 188 wounded service members have already returned to duty. So that's what he's saying right now. Parnell said that 8 were seriously wounded service members were receiving the highest level of medical care. Reuters cannot determine the types of injuries and whether they include traumatic brain injuries, which are common with exposure to blast. Iran has launched retaliatory strikes against the U.S. military bases since the start of the conflict on February 28th. It also struck diplomatic missions in the Arab Gulf states, as well as hotels and airports, and damaged oil infrastructure. And this is something we were talking about, that they're going after hotels where they're putting U.S. personnel. In other words, if you're going to be a service member, they're to hurt them and attack Iran's going to defend itself and come back after you. The Pentagon says numbers of Iranian strikes have fallen sharply since the start of the war, as U.S. military bombs Iran's weapons inventories and targets Iran's more than limited numbers of missile launchers. That's been the talk. They're really trying to say on the TV right now that they're eliminating the missile launchers. They're eliminating the mission launchers. I think they're fighting, and I respect that. But I don't think they are more formidable than what we thought. So once again, now here we have it. They're playing it down, saying these people aren't a worthy adversary. It's something different than we've been told. But that number is going to continue to increase, fam. They are suppressing the number of people hurt out of the blue. Well, it was 108 that were wounded. Well, why didn't you tell us that before? Why was it 8 people? Why is that coming out now? And if they're telling you that 150 people are wounded or killed, fam, it's much bigger than that. They're going to downplay this, and they're going to hold these numbers. People are all over the internet and go, watch. They're going to start trickling out these numbers. Here's a little sample of that. We talked about that. We called it for what it was. We knew, fam, that the number would be higher. And right now, I believe the number is much higher than 150. They're going to suppress this information as long as they can. Our good friend who was in the chat earlier, Snow, was talking about the tactic in which they're going to do it. They're going to tell you about these events or these attacks where they're going to release all these numbers. And that's how they're able to hold back this information. I don't know, fam, what the law is on how long the government has in which they don't have to disclose to the family in which their family member was either killed or injured. I don't know that information. I know that they probably have loopholes in which they can do that. But to believe for 1 second that there was only 8 people killed with all these attacks going around, with all those military bases, it's fool's gold. They want to keep that number low because they want you to believe that this is a quick in and out procedure. Donald Trump is acting like they're going to win the war. And this is the way the off-ramp, he's going to say, well, fam, we struck a deal. The Iranians have come around, and now that China knows that we're not going to play any games, we've made a deal. They're going to use that as an off-ramp because people are so ignorant to what's going on over there that he can sell the American people anything, and his minions will come out there. See, Pam, this is peace through strength. The Iranians are now negotiating. They wouldn't do that before. Now they're negotiating. They're going to spin this differently. This is about war propaganda, and be ready for a lot more of it, ladies and gentlemen, because you're going to hear a lot of BS in the next couple days.
Along with that BS, fam, is the fact that Donald Trump has wasted billions of dollars to basically lie to people. And now he's trying to back off and say that he just followed the advice of Jared Kushner and what's his name? Steve
Wickoff.
Witkoff. And I said former reality TV star spent billions to change Ali Khamenei from old to young and kill children mercilessly, all based on the recommendations of an ultra-Zionist realtor, which is Jared Kushner, also known as the Antichrist, and ultra-Zionist Fox News host.
Pete Hegseth.
Well, is it Pete Hegseth? Yeah.
It is or no?
I thought it was.
No, well, it could be Rubio, because he did say Rubio. Play the video. He said Rubio, Hegseth. He named all of them, fam. And I know it could be confusing to get the Zionist minions mixed up because there's so many of them.
There's so many of them, and they all look like evil, and they're all the same. So but the most that I want you all to get out of this is that Donald Trump is now blaming his entire decision making on these two other dum-dums, saying that he just followed their advice. Just hear what he says.
The situation was very quickly approaching the point of no return, and the United States.
Start it over again.
The situation was very quickly approaching the point of no return, and the United States found it intolerable, in my opinion, based on what Steve and Jared and Pete and others were telling me, Marco, so involved, that I thought that they were going to attack us. I thought they would, if we didn't do this at the time we did it, I think they had in mind to attack us. And the situation was very quick.
So at that time, I thought they were going to attack us. So does that mean now he's saying, he's kind of admitting that that's not the case anymore? And yeah, it's Hegseth, who has a weird face and he always feels like a preacher that is talking to an audience, and it's hard to buy what he says. So Donald Trump is kind of backtracking, I think, in a way, but to the blame, right? He's saying, no, we at that moment, we thought we were gonna, we thought they were gonna attack us. So, we just made that decision. And for him to say that means that there's something going on, meaning like that there's a little bit of pushback happening right now, even from the people who support him, because people are like, what's going on? You said this would be very quick. It's now 11 days. Nothing's changed. How long is this going to go? The economy is going to suffer. There's only so much you can hold it back. People are starting to freak out because of the market. And you know how Americans are. We look at the market, the stock market, all of these things. And I think a lot of people are like, okay, wait a minute. We weren't expecting this to go down this route. The other thing is that while, as Pasta mentioned earlier, right, the Trump administration is diminishing the number of dead, of the number of U.S. soldiers who have been injured or killed, they're also diminishing Iran's capabilities. Even in the Reuters article you showed, Pasta, they're saying that, the United States is bombing Iran's weapons depots, and they don't have a lot of missiles left, which is completely false from what Iran is saying. They're saying, no, we're prepared to go to war with you for 10 years, right? And so the senior Iranian military has said that Trump's statements about the near end of the war are political illusions, because Trump then later came out and said that, this is almost done. It's almost a done deal. We're almost done. And they're like, what are you talking about? We're almost done. Because Iran's saying, we're not accepting a ceasefire. We're not accepting these proposals or demands related to it. And they're saying they're going to continue this war until all their goals are achieved. So this is what, if you can scroll down to the translation from the Iran Now, it says, Trump's statements about the near end of the war are political illusions and not based on the reality of the field. The Islamic Republic of Iran categorically rejected all proposals and demands related to the ceasefire and confirmed that it will continue the war until its goals it has set are achieved. Any step taken by Trump or the United States to try to occupy the Iranian islands will result in an unexpected and large-scale attack, not only on Iran, but also on the countries that host American military bases in the region. So that is a direct translation to what they're saying. They're not backing down. And again, if Iran if what Trump said is true and that he's nearly won, right, they wouldn't have bombed Iran in the middle of the night. So that same day that Trump made that statement, they attacked Iran in the middle of the night on March 9th. So why would you attack Iran if this is almost done? Like, why would you then also simultaneously be behind closed doors, back channeling to try to get a ceasefire with Iran if you had already won? So how can people trust anything that Donald Trump is saying right now? How can anybody trust a word coming out of his mouth when he's constantly been lying?
Yeah. Yeah. And this whole, like, it's so crazy to me, like this mafia style whacking of killing of, you know what I'm saying? And then, you know, we talked about the bombing in the Qatar base with the Hamas, you know, representatives while they're in negotiations. I mean, how can this not have a long-term effect on anybody wanting to trust the United States, right? This is just ridiculous that you guys go along with this and think this is okay. And then turn around and say Trump's acting like a genius for doing this. No, he's putting us in a worse position because now nobody's going to ever want to talk to us anymore, because why would they believe us when we constantly lie?
Sam, I know that you know you love a good false flag when you
I
see
do.
one.
Who
And
doesn't?
we know that we've been talking about Iran wanting to use nuclear weapons, right? Because not Iran, the United States wanting to use nuclear weapons, because this is what they accuse Iran of, even though Iran doesn't have them, or, you know, and they don't even want Iran to have the ability to build them. So we know that every accusation is a confession, the same way it is with Israel. So look at this. This is from Nick Swarter, right?
Yeah,
So he
my
said
favorite.
he said the U.S. has reportedly intercepted encrypted conversations from the Iranian government meant to trigger sleeper cells. I've never heard of sleeper cells before. Across the West, including in the U.S., per ABC. Thanks to Democrats, we have no clue of how many of these sleeper cells are in the U.S., and Schumer is still keeping DHS shut down. Democrats are the enemies of the people. So once again, now we're doing this partisan bullshit and promoting false flags. Let's
Tribalist
watch
mentality.
this video. Let's watch the video and see what lunacy they're talking about this time. And just take out the banner.
An alarming report of threats outside Iran. ABC News reports Iran may be activating sleeper cells.
Sleeper cells,
the
man.
U.S. has intercepted encrypted communications believed to have originated in Iran that may serve as an operational trigger for sleeper assets outside the country. If true, further illustrating Secretary of State Marco Rubio's point, we are fighting a terrorist government.
The United States is currently engaged in an operation targeting one of the world's leading hostage taker, the world's leading sponsor of terrorism. They are trying to hold the world hostage. They are attacking their neighbors. They are attacking neighboring countries, their energy infrastructure, their civilian population. They're attacking embassies. This is a terrorist government. This is a terroristic regime. And we are seeing them conduct terrorism using nation-state elements, using weapons like missiles and one-way attack drones. And the objective of this mission is to destroy their ability to continue to do that.
But Iran's...
Bam.
Yeah. Did he tap into the anti-Arab, anti-immigrant propaganda in that tweet? I think so. I think he did. You know, and it's kind of funny because some of the stuff they mention nowadays, and we'll get over that, right? Like the things they use to manufacture consent for bombing. The number one thing is the anti-Islamic mentality, right? That's Nick Swarter was kind of talking about it. It's like, oh, you know, they're the state sponsor of terror all over the place. This is Islam versus Christianity. Christian Judaic principles are on the line here. We have to push back. Now we have sleeper cells. They're going to activate sleeper cells right out there. So we'll talk about the next stage of bullshit, the new thing that they get to manufacture consent. But all this is war propaganda. What Nick Swarter is doing is promoting war propaganda, right? And that's the thing about the conservatives nowadays, that you don't even need to have proof. Somebody can just say something and you'll think it's true. Look at all their rhetoric when it comes to what's going on with immigrants at the border and stuff. They don't even have the data to back up to all their claims. Oh, these are criminals coming in here. Really, if you look at the data, immigrants, illegal and legal, are booked at a far lower rate for crimes than American citizens. So really, to tell you the truth, they commit far less crime than Americans if you look at the data. Oh, they're coming here illegally. Oh, really? Because they really have a right to do so. They can seek refuge here as a political prisoner, especially when your country has bases and is deciding who should lead in those countries and promoting actual dictators while stealing their resources. They have a right, according to the Geneva Conventions and the UN Charter, to come here to seek refuge. It's all the bullshit all the time. They don't even look for the data. They don't care about the data. So when they say something, fam, idiots like Nick Sorter, Benny Johnson, and some other people we'll talk about later, just run with this shit. And all it is confirmation bias, tribal mentality, team sports bullshit, war propaganda. That's what it is. Yeah, thank you, Jayme. Too many video games, fam. Too many video games. Americans play too many video games. Sleeper cells.
It's insane. I mean, as somebody said in the chat, it's been used forever, like the sleeper cells.
Years.
And as Jayme said, the United States has sleeper cells. So every accusation is a confession. I agree with that.
And saying that there are sleeper cells here they are addressing from Iran justifies more bombing on innocent civilians in Iran. That's what it does. That's what you're doing, Nick Sorter. You piece of shit.
There's this video that Iran put out. There's two of them, but there's two of them. The second one we can just show you. We can't play it because I think we'll get a copyright because it's like boots are made for walking.
What else is new, fam?
Soon. But the first one we can definitely show. It's a video showing a little girl getting ready for school and a U.S. soldier getting ready to launch the missiles that will kill her and all of the children at school. So I think the entire world needs to see this. Let's just go ahead and play the video. That's the reality of what our money is going to do.
Yes.
It's you can talk about all the politics behind it, but at the end of the day, that's exactly what's happening. These missiles are going to kill children, civilians. It wasn't just little girls. There's a little boy that died. There was teachers. There was people who worked there. I mean, they knew. This isn't the first time the United States has killed innocent civilians during a war. I mean, we've done this before. So the fact that people just take that out of their brain doesn't mean it's not happening. I mean, this is really what it comes down to. In Iran, people dare to say that this is propaganda, but it's not propaganda if it really happened. This really happened. So propaganda would be trying to get us to believe and stand with Iran for manipulating a viewpoint. This is actually something that happened. This is actually now CBS even has confirmed that it does look like all major outlets. It does look like the United States did launch the missile that hit the school.
Why do you think people buy it, fam? Why do people in the United States buy it? Why do they justify it? Like Donald Trump said at the end, if it whatever it is, I'll deal with it. I'll accept it.
because
we kill
they
women
think
and children.
okay,
Madeleine Albright. It was worth it. Starving all the children.
yeah,
Why do people accept this shit? This is
for
the beginning of the bombing campaign that people like fucking Naomi Wolf and all these other idiots support nowadays. You bombed children, girls in a school. Why are you accepting this? This has been buried, and people are still justifying it and making up rules. Oh, it's the most extreme fucking regime of all time, the world sponsor of terrorists. Yeah. You just bombed a school with 150 fucking young girls, or how many was 100 and something odd young girls. Who's the terrorist, ladies and gentlemen? How do you buy this shit?
It's
wow.
You know, I think most people don't accept it. I think most people are against it. I think most people just look the other way because they don't want to come to terms with the reality that we are the bad guys, that we are the terrorists, because our whole life we've been told otherwise, that we are the good guys, that, you know, we help people around the world. And a lot of people who don't tune into politics believe that because they see how life is here versus over there. So they look at that and they say, oh, wow, we got our shit together. You know, we may have problems, but at least we're not like those shithole countries over there. And they get these ideas of superiority stuck with them. But the problem is those ideas are also falling apart. Like the livelihoods are declining in the United States. People's wages, all sorts of things are happening. So I think a lot of people now are starting to look at things more questionably. You're still going to have the loud voices that, you know, justify this, but I don't think as many people justify this as you think. I think people just tend to look the other way because they feel like they can't do anything about it. Yeah. That it sucks and this is terrible, but what can we do about it? And it's that, you know, helplessness that we've learned to just deal with it and be comfortable with it, versus people like in Iran, who literally will go out in the streets in the middle of a bombing campaign and you know, stand in solidarity with their beliefs. We won't do that. We won't even go out in the streets when it's sunny and beautiful to stand against the war. I mean, these are the differences. This is, unfortunately, we live in this type of society where this mentality exists. And that is something, when they say death to America, that is what they mean. Death to the empire, death to that mentality that you can continue to do this and be fine. And, you know, again, and the, I think it was the foreign minister has said again, we're not against Americans. We support Americans who don't want this, but, you know, the reality is we just justify it. We look the other way because it's not happening to us. Imagine if Iran did that to us.
Forget about it. Forget about it.
So this other video, you all should go watch it. I don't want to play it.
Can we play a little bit of it or no?
I guess we can, but I just don't want to get our video taken down because of this. The whole video muted. But this is, if Iran did propaganda, this would be what it would be. It's basically just a video with boots are made for walking, to the tune of boots are made for walking. And it shows Israel doing whatever it wants.
Let me put the link in the chat if you can.
And it's really good, building these missiles. And it's just right along with the song. It's kind of just signifying how Iran's pushing back. One of these days, these boots are going to walk all over you. So it's a pushback. And they're using one of the most iconic American songs to show that. And I think it's quite intelligent. I mean, yeah. As we finish up this section, there's a couple things here. They attacked again this bank. So they love to attack banks. Iranian civilian bank Sepa on the Haghani highway in Tehran, killing several bank employees who were working extra shifts hours to prepare people's salaries. In response, Iran's armed forces have warned everyone in the region to stay 1 kilometer away from U.S. Israeli affiliated banks, as it will be among its targets now. So this is according to the IRGC, and you can see they bombed a bank. So they're bombing civilian places. Okay, they're bombing, and you can scroll. They're bombing these areas where there's Lots of civilians. This is in Tehran. This is the capital. This isn't like a rural part, right? This is a lot of people are here. They want to destroy Iran in every facet, you know, economically, right? You talked about the police stations, you talked about the hospitals. They want society to fall apart. It's not, though. That's the thing. So under reality, there's a couple things I want to show. The reality of what's happening that Setareh helped us with. So an Iranian official said, we have not mined the Strait of Hormuz yet, and we do not need a navy to do so. The Strait of Hormuz can be mined with our new rockets, and this is a new technology. So Iran's planning on using a new technology of firing mines into the sea via these rockets or missiles. So it's going to allow mines to be in the shipping lanes. So it's just going to have the faster deployment. They're going to be harder to intercept. The oil prices are going to go up again. The cost of insurance for shipping is going to go up as well. And then these tankers aren't going to be able to get through. So while the United States is, you know, like bragging about how they've destroyed Iran's naval vessels, you know, Trump got on there saying, oh, we destroyed it. He was laughing about it at the bottom of the ocean. They said we could have saved those naval bases or the naval ships because it would have been better to keep them because they look nice. But, you know, and he was just bragging about the whole thing. They're saying it doesn't matter. We don't need a navy to mine this. We don't need a navy to stop you. That at every turn they keep saying, you don't understand what we're doing. We're not going to stop. And in this video by RT, it's 2 minutes of the military spokesperson talking about what's going to happen to the Strait of Hormuz. And he basically says not a single liter of oil will pass through the Strait of Hormuz if it benefits the US, Israel, and its allies. He warns that any tanker bound for them will be a legitimate target. Prepare for $200 per barrel. So we don't have to play it because I'd have to translate the whole thing, but
You just did.
Yep.
$200 a barrel. Let's see that how people deal with that.
I hope it happens because I think that's just going to force some people to deal with the truth, right? To deal with reality.
Yeah.
That's what I think.
They have to take food out of their kids' mouths just to put gas to get to work. We'll see how that.
See, this is why I hope that happens, because if that's the case, then I think that's when people are going to be like, you know, going to the White House, go to the streets. I hope we are affected by it in the United States, unfortunately, because that's the only way people are going to do anything. And you said it yourself. One of the last couple of things I want to read, you know, Marwa wrote this, and you should all go read it. I'll put it in the chat. This is pretty much encapsulates everything that that I think is going on. So she said Iran is making history, 3 straight hours of missile fire raining down on Israel. At the same time, the Pentagon quietly confirms something it almost never admits. 141 American soldiers in the Persian Gulf wounded, many critically and 9 already dead. This comes just hours after Donald Trump went on television telling the world that the war was basically over. Tehran's answer the very next dawn, the heaviest missile barrage of the entire war. Not just any missiles either. This is what the United States isn't talking about, by the way. They're diminishing what Iran's doing, but Iran's actually hitting them very hard. Not just any missiles either. The Khorramshahr carrying a 1-ton warhead. For 13 days, the narrative coming out of Tel Aviv and Washington was the same. Iran is running out of missiles. The Israeli war minister bragged about the largest air bombardment in Israel's history. Marco Rubio stood in front of cameras, practically announcing Iran's surrender. Well, here's what surrender looks like. Cluster warheads spreading submunitions over 10 kilometers, ripping settlers out of their sleep and driving them into bomb shelters before sunrise. Now think about the math here. A country whose air defense system dates back decades, going head-to-head with the most technologically advanced military machine in the Middle East, backed by the largest military empire in human history, the United States. A country that just lost its longtime leader, a country whose top nuclear scientists have been assassinated, a country facing a coalition that thought it could erase it within days. And yet, after 13 days of nonstop war, Iran is still firing, still standing, still unveiling weapons even American intelligence apparently didn't know existed. Trump's minions said Iran's missiles were finished. Missiles keep falling. They said the missile cities were destroyed. The skies keep lighting up. They said the regime would collapse after assassinating Imam Saeed Ali Khamenei. Instead, Iran doubles the missiles barrage from 30 minutes to 3 continuous hours, to the point where even Washington is now clearly hiding the true scale of its casualties. Yep. Because if history teaches us anything, it's that the US military only tells the public what it absolutely has to. And Israeli war media, as always, the losses around strategic sites simply disappear from the narrative. But what fascinates me is not the weapons, it's the psychology of resistance. The moment when every global power tells you the wave is too strong and you should bow your head, and instead you rise from the rubble exactly where everyone thought you had already fallen. That's what Iran is doing right now. Every collaborative voice in the world said surrender equals survival. Lay down your weapons. She's talking about, maybe China, maybe Russia, maybe other voices saying, hey, just ceasefire, okay? You cannot fight THAAD or Patriots or Tomahawks or F-35s. And yet here we are, a country under siege, telling the entire geopolitical order something very simple. If you wage total war on us, the entire region will burn with us. Oil routes, shipping lanes, and energy security, none of it remains safe. That is what a civilization thousands of years old looks like when it refuses to kneel. You see, Iran is not a state born from colonial blueprints like its neighbors. It's a civilization that turned decades of sanctions into scientific infrastructure and built a deterrence network capable of striking in every direction. And because of that, the so-called New Middle East project has hit a brick wall. And the model Washington sells to the region, it only survives through fear. The only democracy in the Middle East, Israel, where you get a 5-year sentence if you film any destruction due to Iranian or Hezbollah rockets, that once bragged it could win every war alone, had to bring America in just to face Iran. Yeah. And in doing so, it may have accidentally handed Tehran the most powerful narrative it has ever had. We stood alone against the combined assault of the most powerful empire on earth, and we did not collapse. On the contrary, look at our enemy suffer. Iran is making history. This is one of those powerful statements that I've read, and that encapsulates pretty much everything that's happening in this war. And I think, I don't know if there's anything else left to say. I mean, all of that is true.
Yeah. I think this last video, we've all seen this, me and you, we've seen this. I saw that you shared it after I liked it, because it's really powerful, right? You know what I'm saying? And I think we need more of this. There are a group of people who are speaking up and standing out. Look, I've had my differences with Mike Preisner before in the past, but at least he's come out and spoke about what's going on and that story, saying, you'll never believe what they made me do over there, right? You know what I'm saying? That you understand sometimes, and that's what I'm saying. There's no going back. There are people like RBN and Nick Cruz and stuff like that say, don't join the military. There's no sympathy if you join the military, because at the end of the day, you are actually the terrorist. You're not going to kill terrorists. You are the terrorist. Here's a service member kind of sharing that same sentiment years after. And I feel awful, because this person, even though she was the terrorist and she's admitting that, she's also a victim. She was lied to by her country, and we're being lied to on a regular basis. That's why people like Rubio, Trump, Hegseth, they should really hang for their fucking crimes, what they're doing.
20 years ago, I participated in a war on terror. And today, I'm having to come to terms with the realization that I was the terrorist.
I'm glad you admitted that, girl, but you are a victim too. They lied to you. I get it. There, a lot of people's stances are right now that you should know better enough right now. You should know well enough, that when you join the military, the United States military, that is, you are going off to fight rich man's wars. You're a poor person fighting rich man's wars. You're not fighting for freedom. You're not fighting for humanity. You're not fighting for decency. You're not fighting for human rights. You're fighting for capitalist, rich oligarchs who want to continue to control all the resources, and they don't give a shit about life. They don't care about you. They don't care about the people they send you to kill. And you need to come to this reality right now if you join the military. I'm sorry, but I'm kind of getting along with Nick. I get it that, a lot of people can obviously say and think that you might be a victim yourself, and I've just said that, but we need to start waking up to this. Don't join the military. Don't do it.
Yeah, I agree with that, Jayme.
Yeah, it's not just the soldiers, it's the civilians who work in the military industrial complex too. Absolutely.
Okay, I think that's it for that section.
Yeah, let's get into it. Guys, show the gifts and go, guys. We haven't had any shares. Can you guys do me a favor? There's so many people on there right now. Let's get some more shares. If you ain't got no dollars to spare, then go ahead and give us a share. See, it rhymes, fam. You got to rhyme. I'm a hip hop star as well as, dude, let's hit the shares. Let's get the like button. Let's make sure we share that in the chat. Let's go out there. Let's get it out there. We need some help. Thank you to TD who made the last donation was a birthday gift, and Fee's birthday has been many days ago. So now we
I celebrate all month, guys, in case you want to, help out.
YouTube with the censoring of the comments and taking stuff down. They're so fucking awful. They're just so
we
awful.
don't censor, so I don't know.
Somebody was
It's
complaining
definitely
about
not
that
us.
the other day. It's like it's YouTube, guys. There's nothing we can do about it, but the links are there. Share, do us a favor, get it out there. We love you. We appreciate it. TD, who left a great thing. It's 37 gives and 22 shares. I wanted to get to 40 gives and 30 shares for the show. I'll take 38 gives and 23 shares for the show right now, but we can really get that number up there if you guys participate and help us out. And you can see the type of information and news we're bringing you guys. We've been consistent all along. We've been principled. We don't deter from our principles just to go along with tribal mentality for likes or clicks. We bring it to you like it is, right? Okay. So let's get to the next section. Let's get done with this right away too, as well, because it's not a lot of stuff. It's just a couple of tweets and stuff. Yes.
Yeah, it's 2 hours and 22 minutes. So
yes, let's creep through it. Let's get through it because I don't want to. This needs to get out there right now, and I need your opinions on this, fam, because this is crazy. So Jayme, let's bring it on up. First tweet. We had talked about, and I got a list over here, fam. You have Islam's attack on America. That's manufacturing consent for bombing, right? The worldwide sponsor of terrorism that Iran is, more manufacturing of consent for bombing. The sleeper cells, fam. They got sleeper cells out there. Now, just when you don't think that the level of shit can get any higher, everything that guy says is bullshit. When you don't think it can get any higher, they come and they bring you something even more extraordinary out there that you never believed could happen, fam. Here's QAnon-like conspiracy theory, the newest one. Laura Logan, Mel K. Thank you very much. Watch this one, ladies and gentlemen.
Caracas with Maduro, watching them steal the election from Donald Trump and having a great time.
There is evidence that Iran interfered in the 2020 election. And of course, Mark Elias is out there panicking about it. So just one last thing before I let you go, because I just remembered this, and I know Lara put it up, and these people have been working very hard for a very long time. And I think you should know that this is absolutely true. And the strike in Iran is multifaceted. There is definitely a connection between Venezuela and Iran and the election. But take a listen here to one of the former intelligence officers that tells Lara Logan the truth, and then I'll let you go.
The Iranian foreign minister was actually in 2020 in Havana, in Caracas,
which is the capital of Venezuela.
Was in Caracas with Maduro, watching them steal the election from Donald Trump and having a great time. So he was brought over to watch it there, watch it steal it from Trump. Watch us punish the Americans.
Fam, I didn't realize the level of
everything
shit.
That guy just says bullshit. Thank you.
I didn't think he could get that big. I didn't think he'd get that much. But first of all, I like the fact that he said Havana and he had to switch it to Caracas, and then Laura Logan had the audience, right? Oh, Caracas is the capital of Venezuela. Thanks for reminding the people out there. That's how she's got to tell her people that. I mean, But fam, no evidence, no paper. I mean, can you imagine, fam, just what the paper trail would be like if Venezuela and Iran colluded to steal the 2020 election, right? Like how much information there would be out there for this and stuff like that. There's no pieces of information. There's no paper trail. There's no voice, phone call, whatnot. It's just a CIA whistleblower, or what I like to call a CIA information narrative management specialist, telling you that Iran and Venezuela together stole the 2020 election from Donald Trump, fam.
It's so ridiculous. I can't even comment on it because it's just beyond stupid. There's nothing to say. It's just absolute lunacy. Like it's absolute. Like I laugh because there's what do you say to that? Like it's like making up that Mickey Mouse stole the election from Donald Trump. You're basically saying that. Like it's absolute insanity.
Yeah.
There's nothing else to say. They're dumb, and they get so many clicks and stuff on this because their tribe will believe anything they say. And it's annoying, and this is why I don't even want to give it airtime, because it's beyond stupid to even discuss it as a serious.
Well, as an election integrity activist, if Iran and Venezuela stole the election, would there not be a ton of paper trail? Would there not be a bunch of work? I mean, we would argue that I would say, I'm going to just put myself on record, that the election in 2020 was thwarted through clustering, with stuffing the ballot boxes, right? Like you don't need people to steal an election right now. You just need ballots. And there's a lot of ballots out there. But I don't know what they're even insinuating, that Iran hired people to stuff ballots in these. I don't even know what they're doing. Fam,
they're not insinuating anything.
Yeah.
They're not. I'm not an activist. I'm like, we're specialists in it. And the thing is, it's ridiculous to even discuss it, though, because they don't even give that information. If they were serious about it, then they would, but they don't give that information. So how do you even discuss something when it's not a serious discussion? Like they're just saying Iran and Venezuela colluded, but they're not saying how, because they don't know how, because they're making it up. So again, like,
yeah, ridiculous. CIA talking points. We got more of them. Here's Naomi Wolf. She did a debate with Derek Rose the other day. I know you said, why do we have to give these people oxygen? But they do have big audiences, and they're spewing some stuff. And I'd like to push back against them. Derek Rose did an amazing job, but listen to the propaganda from Naomi Wolf yesterday.
Our allies have said that Iran should never be allowed to develop a nuclear weapon. Macron said Iran's nuclear escalation threatens the stability of the entire region. That's France, that's not Israel. The German foreign ministry said Iran's enrichment levels are far beyond any credible civilian use. And I hope you really understand what that means, Mr. Brose. It means they're building for attacks. The House Foreign Affairs Committee said Iran's nuclear program poses a grave threat to global security. And a completely independent body, the IAEA, which monitors atomic energy escalation, the International Atomic Energy Agency's Director General Rafael Grossi said Iran has enriched uranium to near weapons grade levels and has enough material for several nuclear weapons if further enriched. And in addition to that, a really important book that I recommend that you read by Jayme Glazoff called United in Hate documents that Venezuela, which you may note President Trump also just struck and did a regime change, much as we don't like regime change unilaterally. Venezuela was working with Iran to get the materials for them that would further enrich their uranium, further build their capacity.
Mockingbird Media repeat the same lie.
Warhead. So to me, it's common sense. It's not ideological. It's not left or right that this completely unstable regime run by people who believe more in an afterlife than in making things safe and secure and positive for their people, which I haven't even gotten into in this life, and have shown their willingness to attack their allies as well as their enemies, indiscriminately, with no thought to what this will do to people like Saudi Arabia, United Arab Emirates, Pakistan, right? Also a major power. They are building warheads and they've targeted us as the great Satan. They identify us, the United States, not us, Israel. I'm speaking as an American. They've said very clearly that they want to, wipe us off the face of the earth, and they're partnering with Venezuela to take it even further. So they've been given the chance to de-escalate. They've been given the chance to obey the treaties. They've been given the chance to have their facilities inspected. This is, I don't know how familiar you are with the situation of nuclear.
I'm very familiar. Can I respond to this? You've been talking for quite a bit. There's a lot to respond to.
I let you finish, Mr. Bros. But
Mr. Bros.
Iran
He's so
did
polite.
not abide
He's
by
so nice.
international law and treaties in de-escalating, bringing it down to a civilian level, and they were posing an immediate, imminent threat to life, in the Western Hemisphere, if not life on Earth. Absolutely, they needed to be removed from threatening all the people on the planet.
Now, fam,
How
I
long
brought
has
that clip.
Netanyahu been claiming that Iran was about to finish their nuclear weapons?
Okay.
I
Where's
really
Jayme?
don't know. I don't really.
Right, yeah.
I don't know. For fucking like
I
20 plus years.
I had to bring the whole Venezuela thing because the repeating of this now that Iran has this relationship with Venezuela. Iran does have a relationship with Venezuela. It's an anti-imperialist trade relationship with Venezuela. Iran helped put supermarkets in Venezuela at their weakest moment when they were just at their hardest times through sanctions and a blockade. Of course, there's a relationship between the two. But that doesn't mean they are working together secretly to undermine the United States elections. And the funny thing is that Matt had mentioned the other day, it's like, oh, they're going to spend all that time and effort to make sure that Donald Trump doesn't get in an office just to fuck themselves maybe a little less than the Democrats would. In other words, the policies remain the same, right? Whether it be a Democrat or Republican in office, you still get John McCain. You still get, hostile policies towards them. So why would Venezuela, whose Barack Obama's policy, Joe Biden's policy, Bill Clinton's policy was very hostile toward them, why would they want that person in office rather than Donald Trump? Now, I know people are going to make the argument, well, Donald Trump removed him. He went a step further. That would have never happened. But they wouldn't go out of their way to do this just to fuck themselves a little less because they're not really fucking themselves a little less. The way Iran, the way Venezuela looks at the United States, it doesn't make a difference to them who is in office, a Republican or Democrat. So that theory alone should tell you that there's no way that this happened. Not despite the fact that there's no evidence whatsoever. And it's ridiculous that they would put that out there, but why would they do that? And how could they do that? I mean, it's beyond ridiculous. This hurts the whole election integrity movement. And it makes you remove yourself from the biggest problem that's out there. The system itself is the fraud, not somebody just committing the fraud. The system is set up to be fraudulent, and we need to change the whole system.
I'm nauseous because not one word about Israel or what Israel has done. Yeah. She says Iran is the most threatening thing to all life on earth. Number one, the United States is the only country in the world that has dropped an atom nuclear bomb on a country. Two, Israel is the only other country that has, besides the United States, imposed a genocide and bombed innocent civilians, just like we just saw. So who is the danger to the world? Who has multiple wars waging with Russia, Ukraine, Iran, blew up and regime change Venezuela, which she pretends to be against regime change, but she's really not because she makes the exceptions accordingly, is threatening to do the same to Cuba, to Mexico, eventually Nicaragua, is threatening the president of Colombia and the president of Mexico, is literally going on this whole jingoistic, like Donroe Doctrine war, and is also now going to try to threaten the entirety of Latin America, South America's elections that are coming up as well, and bombed Ecuador too in the middle of all of this. Like who? And of course China. Of course, the whole situation with China. I mean, who is a threat to the entire planet? We know who those threats are. So I can't even take seriously somebody that it's just propaganda point by propaganda point with no half truths and no evidence, who doesn't, and Derek is so polite because I wouldn't have been as polite.
You see how nice he was? He was like holding it back. If you watch the first 12 minutes of that debate too, as well, when, all she does is go after Derek where he is, like, oh, you don't live in the United States. That means we can't you know, your message is not as, your opinion is not as important, I guess, that she's trying to say, because he doesn't live in the United States, that he doesn't vote. And that's what the right and the left both do. And now we see the right doing it more than ever, right? If you can't delegitimize the message or the point of view, you try to delegitimize the messenger. And she goes after him. And that's what they do. Like, if you don't have the laundry list of the things that they believe make you a patriot or worthy, you know, if you don't have the nationalistic resume that they have, that they believe in, you're not a Christian. What words do you have? You're not an American. You live outside the United States. You know, you don't know 3 Leonard Skinner songs. How dare you make an opinion? I mean, these are the stupid things they fucking come up with, right? These are the assholes who rather watch fucking Kid Rock and his skinny legs than Bad Bunny with a bunch of hot Latinos on the stage, right? This is the fucking craziness there. This is the, right? This is the stupidity. But fam, the reason why a lot of this kind of shit plays through too as well is because the other side in the team sports mentality is just as crazy and stupid. The other day, they had a Senate hearing committee or whatever what it was that they were told and given updates on what was really going on in Iran, how long they might be there, how much it's costing, all this other stuff. Well, here's Fiorella Isabel's favorite senator, Dick Blumenthal, going back to the good old hits, fam, the Russian collusion.
I emerged from this briefing as dissatisfied and angry, frankly, as I have from any past briefing in my 15 years in the Senate.
Oh,
I am left with more questions than answers, especially about the cost of the war. My questions have been unanswered, and I will demand answers because the American people deserve to know. And I guess I am most concerned about the threat to American lives of potentially deploying our sons and daughters on the ground in Iran. We seem to be on a path toward deploying American troops on the ground in Iran to accomplish any of the potential objectives here.
Wait for it.
And there is also, as disturbingly as anything else, the specter of active Russian aid to Iran, putting in danger American lives. Literally, Russia seems to be aiding our enemy.
Here it is.
Actively and intensively with intelligence and perhaps with other means. And China also may be assisting Iran. So the American people deserve to know much more than this administration has told them about the cost of the war, the danger to our sons and daughters in uniform, and the potential for further escalation and widening of this war, a war of choice made by this president, not chosen by the American people, with potentially huge consequences to American lives.
Fam, it's back. Just when you thought it was safe to go into the water, they bring you back the Russia collusion. This is like the same thing from the New York Times article. What is it, 5-6 years ago? Russians are killing American troops. He tried to make that parallel, that connection once again. And this is what would you have, ladies and gentlemen, in this country. You got Democrats talking about the Russia collusion. Now you got conservatives talking about it was Iran and Venezuela that stole the election. I mean, it's just batshit crazy to the nth degree, fam. Go ahead.
There's no confirmation that Russia gave Iran intelligence. That was only posted by mainstream media. It was never confirmed by Russia themselves, by anybody in the Russian government. It was only peddled by pro-Russia commentators but the mainstream media. What Russia did provide was some weapons before. We don't know if they're providing, Iran and other representatives of Iran have said that they're providing some sort of, they're having conversations, but the way it's been peddled, and same with China, China's provided the satellites, but the way it's been peddled, it's like that Russia and China are like fighting this with Iran. That's not the case. Iran, and you've heard it from Setareh, we're fighting this alone. Nobody and also Marwa. Nobody's fighting with us. Like there's no military assistance coming from China or Russia. They're not getting involved right now. A lot of people are saying they should. Obviously, that's going to escalate things, but ultimately, the reality is after Iran, both Russia and China are more vulnerable. And that's a reality that they both should know. But, you know, like I said before, they act economically, pragmatically. They're not wanting to dissolve the economic expansions that are happening, especially with China. China is very much about the Belt and Road Initiative, is very much worried about the economy, the economic aspect of it, long term, right? So this is why they're trying to avoid the war, because they want to stop this from continuing, because it affects everybody. But China's ships have reportedly been allowed to cross the Strait of Hormuz. So there's definitely conversations being had. But as far as like them providing intelligence, that seems to me like a more attempt like to go the route of like blaming Russia and saying they're colluding with Iran to fight this war, when actually that's not really what's happening. You have also divisions within Russia, like I said before, people like Sergei Lavrov calling out what Israel has done versus you know, the Kremlin being far more neutral. And every day we hear this sort of thing. So
by the way, just breaking, fam, the FBI has warned police departments in California that Iran wants to retaliate for American attacks by launching offensive drones against the West Coast, according to an alert reviewed by ABC News. Aaron Katereski reports, I'm not going to play it just now, but I did want to point our good friend Keith McHenry, the founder of Food Not Bombs, who will be here with us on Friday, says the FBI plans to launch drones at California and blame the attacks on Iran. U.S. government has lost the war on Iran, is getting desperate, fam. So just want to let you know that's what we have in
false
store.
Flags.
Yeah, and Jayme, I believe that you have it looks like you have something there that maybe you want to show from Lindsey Graham. Because I think
I'm not with you. I'm with Israel. I will be with Israel to our dying day.
There you go. That needs to be a soundbite.
Let's take him to the front lines. There you go.
He
He can go to send him to Tel Aviv. Please, we will all pay for it gladly. The taxpayers will all
we'll
all
deter
pay
our
to
money
put him on a plane.
From our Give, Send, Go. And by the way, we just got a donation from Election Integrity. Thank you so much. So we got to 38. We didn't get to 40, but we got to 38. Got a little bump there. 1972. That was the year before I was born. I was born in 1973. But we'll deter that money from that if the people allow us to send Lindsey Graham to the front line. So if people say that's okay, we'll take that money and send Lindsey Graham to the front line if he's willing to do that. We'll make the sacrifice to save America. There it is, Election Integrity. Thank you so much. Thank you guys so much for helping on out, guys. We want you to help out the show in any way you can. If you can't give us a share. Go and hit that share button. This is from Fam and I's. This is our ways of getting out there and doing a lot of good work. We have a lot of stuff in front of us. We have elections in Peru, but there's a lot of great stories what we want to cover. Remember, they sit on the lithium triangle. That's very important. Colombia has an election coming up. The West is going to try to get their puppet back in there. If not, I mean, I think they weren't too crazy about Gustavo Petro, but he has some relationships with them. The funding for weapons never stopped for Colombia, and that's something that we have to point out. They're still buying weapons from us. I think they still have those contracts, but definitely he did kind of signal a different type of leadership there from the El Duque government. There's so many stories we have to cover. These ICE detention centers that are going all around town. It's one thing after the other. So help us get our boots on the ground, guys. I've been in a room before with Friendly Brilliant before with the Bernie Sanders campaign in a press conference, and we were the only one to push him back there about what was going on in that election. I remember we were standing toe to toe there. We need independent media out there to do the good jobs for you out there, not tell you bullshit stories that like Iran and Venezuela came together to steal the 2020 election. So that is it for today, ladies and gentlemen. I want to thank you all for joining us today. I am Craig Pasta Jardula with my host, Fiorella Isabel, and of course, Jayme CheeseSlice on the ones and two, and all you lovely, awesome people in the chat. Thank you for helping the Give, Send, Go. If you want to go ahead and donate, please go ahead and donate it. If not, share. We'll see you back on Friday. Keith McHenry will be the guest. Thank you. If you want to go and listen or you want to call in, 212-209-2877. WBAI. It is 3:18 in less than 42 minutes. I will be on the air taking questions from all the New Yorkers or anybody else out there that wants to call in. That's it. Truth out. We'll see you Friday.
Bye.
The Dow right now.